கரைச்சல் ஓகேங்களா? இதுல பாதி நேரம்லாம் வசதி.
Good morning, ma'am. Can you hear?
Start reading. Start reading.
Good morning, ma'am. Can you hear?
Yes, all great. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Ma'am, we really apologize for the delay. Could you kindly wait for another 10 minutes, ma'am? I will start the meeting.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Lodi, ma'am. Charges. The 10 to ma'am, can you hear us, ma'am? Are we audible? Can you please observe it? Ma'am, can you?
Lori, can you hear me? Okay, they can't hear you and we can't hear you. They keep asking you if you can hear them. So I think your settings are incorrect, probably on the microphone. And we can't
Me?
hear you. Yeah, now I do.
You
Perfect.
hear me now?
Yes, perfect.
Yes, ma'am. Good
Okay.
morning, ma'am. We are able to hear
Good.
you now. Can you hear us, ma'am?
Yes, I can hear you.
We kindly apologize for the delay. We will start the meeting in another 10 minutes, ma'am.
Okay. And should I have my video off? Trying to figure out how to turn, oh, there we go. Turn the video off. My taskbar was hiding these buttons. Okay, let's turn this off. There's
Or we'll ask them. Next to you. Sort of. Yes. Even on in the
Power is on.
start.
Good morning, ma'am. Can we kindly start with the symposium? Your research persons, can we kindly start the symposium? They are unmuting themselves.
Okay.
So just let us know when you want us to start, please. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. A very good morning to one and all present here. It gives me immense pleasure in welcoming you all to this international symposium organized by the Department of Environmental Law and Legal Order of the Tamil Nadu Dr.Ambedkar Law University under the constant support and kind guidance of our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Colonel Professor Dr. N.S. Santosh Kumar sir. The purpose of us gathering here today is to discuss about a phenomenon of national and international significance, something that concerns the entire humankind and something that requires a common unified front against combat. That is the issue of climate change. The reason for choosing this issue is that it is no longer an impending danger, but has become a living reality. We can visibly and very vividly see the effects of climate change through the ever-rising temperatures, failure of monsoons, and the resultant distortion of economy, ecologies, as well as loss of livelihoods. Since the existence of the issue of climate change is indisputable, today's theme has been set as climate change as a social reality, a shift from papers to practice. And we have with us today in our midst two international speakers and a national environmentalist and one of our alumni to elaborate on the issue and to take us through the national and international challenges facing climate change combat, the cost and impact of our development activities, and the need for decentralizing mitigation measures and action plans. On behalf of the entire Tamil Nadu Dr.Ambedkar Law University, I would like to welcome our Honorable Chief Guests and Resource Persons, Dr.Ingrid Vasiliu-Feltes, Ms. Lori Elizabeth Souza, and Mr. Piyush Manush. I would now like to welcome our Honorable PG Director, Professor Dr. Kumudaratna ma'am, Head of the Department of Business Law, who has been our constant guide and support in arranging a lot of academic activities, including this conference. Ma'am has been the organizer of several national and international symposium. I kindly request ma'am to deliver the welcome address. Thank you.
A pleasant morning to one and all present here. First of all, I would like to thank, before welcoming, our Honorable Vice Chancellor sir for giving us the complete absolute freedom to organize various programs in different areas of law and also for career advancement, etc. My humble respectful welcome to our Honorable Vice Chancellor sir. And secondly, I would like to welcome our special international speakers, Dr. Ingrid and Lori Souza, to this program. Thank you for giving your valuable time, and I don't know about the difference in time, but still making it and enriching the knowledge of our students. Thank you, ma'am. And also I thank Mr. Piyush, who will be also enriching our knowledge on the topic of the day. Thank you very much, sir, for coming for this program, the symposium. I thank our registrar for making it convenient for us to hold all these programs and giving us full support. And also my cheerful thanks to our dean, who is always supportive. I said cheerful thank you because cheerful welcome, because always with a cheerful smiling face, anything, any problems also, he resolves immediately. A very hearty welcome to our Dean Sir, Dr. Balaji, and also my welcome to our Director Research, who is also the organizer of the program, Dr. Harita ma'am. Thank you for organizing this program and many more programs. We all know that we have another international conference coming soon in next month. My welcome to the all the directors of UG, 5 directors of UG, and also to the heads of the 11 departments of law and international, that is interdisciplinary department and library also. My welcome to all the colleagues who will be joining us shortly. They are away because of lectures. They will be joining us shortly. Thank you for sparing your valuable time. And my respectful, I say, because without them, we cannot have this program in a short while. All the admin staff of UG and PG, and also our Mr. Kirupakaran for arranging the mic and all these facilities. Thank you very much. And not last, I'll say the first, but I'm telling you now, a very warm welcome to all our students, LLM students. All these programs, not only this, each and every of the program is arranged for your benefit. And I'm sure this also will be enriching your knowledge further. A hearty welcome to one and all. We'll have a very enriching program, I'm certain. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. I would now like to welcome Professor Dr. Harita Devi, ma'am, Director of Research Publications and Academic Affairs, HOD in charge of the Department of Environmental and Legal Order. Kindly deliver the felicitation address.
Good morning to one and all present here. At the outset, I feel very happy that I'm able to arrange this in terms of international symposium, because we feel that we get a specialized knowledge when speakers from abroad address us, and that too in a very, very important current topic, which is climate change. Because on the whole world has started to think of this topic. We know that it has been spoken for some time back itself, but still every time we speak, the problem is getting more and more, I would say, far away from us, or it is really bringing into reality, becoming very, very difficult. Because around the world, we are seeing many disasters happening. And finally, one answer why it happened would be, it's because of climate change. Even in India, I'm just telling this for the foreign delegates who are here. In India, for the past, say, 10 years before, if I myself rewind back and see, I can literally see the climate change that is happening around us. Because when we used to get rain, now it's not raining. When we used to get very hot, it is not very hot. When it was very cold at one point of time, it is not like that. So the seasons are changing every time. Right in front of us, this climate change is happening. So I feel as youngsters, because tomorrow's administrators and rulers, it's youngsters who are sitting here, the students, especially students who are studying environmental law as a specialized subject. It means a lot for you to hear from experts what is climate change or what we can do about it. Because there's a lot which students can do and we ourselves can do. Every individual actually contributes to climate change without our knowledge. We don't realize that we are contributing to this big affair, because we feel some international countries are talking, sitting and talking, some delegates are talking, it's not connected with us. But in fact, every one of us, whatever activity we are doing from morning till evening, like switching off a light at the right time, switching off an AC at the right time, etc., is also contributing to climate change. That's what we feel. So today's symposium, I think we'll have a good discussion. Make it very energetic and enthusiastic, because we need to learn a lot from speakers. At the outset, I would like to thank our alumni, Mr. Abhishek Castro. I think some of you know him. I'm introducing Abhishek Castro to you all, please, if you can. All, because some of you at least know him, because he studied here. A very, very proud and happy moment for me, because he's our alumni, and He has studied here UG, PG, and now he's a very, very successful advocate, I would say. And when we see his programs, every now and then he sends me information, where is he, what is he doing, etc. I'm not going to read entire profile and all, but as a very enthusiastic person from the right UG, I know him. He participates in many, many activities, not only academic activities, but he's also good in cultural, singing, dancing, what you want, you name it, Castro will be there. That was the time. Because I don't know whether the present students know it. If you ask UG students, they will be telling who passed out. We had something called Tantra here, which is a cultural fest, where you will be seeing Castro in his full form on the stage. I have told him, how come you are lighting this audience like this? So I wholeheartedly thank you, Castro, for arranging this, because it's an exclusively academic activity where students should interact with foreign experts. That's what I feel. So I congratulate all of you who have participated or who have come here to listen to us. I give my heartfelt best wishes to all of you. Hope we will interact like this in future also. I thank all the international scholars for joining here. I think in USA it's midnight. I apologize for the timing. I didn't take care of that timing actually. Today morning only I realized I am asking you to talk to midnight. I apologize for that. But definitely have a heartfelt thank you and wishes that you have joined here at this hour. I think without much delay, we will start. But before that, a small thanks, or I would say it's wishes from teachers to a student. I would like to honor our student Abhishek Castro and the coordinator, alumni coordinator of this program. I request Kumada ma'am to be on the stage to honor our student. For me, it's coming only a student. Not even able to tell myself. Yes.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And thank you, Castro. Now moving on to the first speaker and resource person.
Yes. Okay.
Now to introduce our first speaker and resource person, Dr.Ingrid Vasiliu-Feltes, ma'am. She's currently serving as the founder and CEO of Institute SEI. She's a deep tech healthcare and life sciences executive who's highly dedicated to digital and ethics advocacy. In addition to her medical degree, she completed an executive MBA in healthcare policy and management, earning several postgraduate certifications from Harvard, MIT, Stanford, including bioethics from Harvard, as well as National Institute of Health Ethics certification. She is a well-known futurist, globalist, a digital strategist, a passionate educator, and an entrepreneurship ecosystem builder. So I kindly request Dr. Ingrid ma'am to deliver the first lecture of the day. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you. First of all, thanks so much for inviting us. It's a privilege to be with you, even if virtually. And don't worry, we had a lot of espresso, so we'll be awake and hopefully give you a nice presentation. Please let me know if someone is not able to hear me or see the presentation. Great. So the topic of my presentation today will be decentralization of climate action towards a net zero economy. And specifically, I will focus on the impact of Web 3.0. Please forgive me in advance if for some of you, I will use a lot of technology terms that you might not be as familiar with, but I will leave ample time towards the end of the presentation so that you can ask any questions that you wish. And I'm also, of course, available as follow-up if you would like to have more information. I have plenty of resources that are available at the end of the presentation so that you can read them on your own. So please allow me to share a brief overview of the keynote today. First, I'll give you a brief high-level overview of the global landscape we're dealing with. Then we will hone in on targets, milestones, and priorities. I will share some of the strategic considerations that we must think about when we design strategic roadmaps over the next few years. as well as highlight challenges and opportunities that we have. Towards the end, if there's time, I would like to also share a few future directions that that are not only caring about net zero, but also our futurists would like to see happening. And I hope that you will enjoy some of those thoughts with me. So regarding the global landscape, first, I'll highlight some of the legal ecosystem changes, then the economic impact, new related ecosystems that we've seen emerging due to the changes, net zero drivers, and some of the converging technologies. For this audience, I thought you would enjoy a brief snapshot of the legislative changes. 57 jurisdictions around the world, as of today, have stated their climate neutrality goals and have national legislation. As you know, the EU has set clear guidelines by 2050 in terms of climate neutrality. They also have introduced the EU carbon border tax. 11 EU member states have passed their own legislation in addition to the directly applicable regulation. 4 jurisdictions have also set an earlier target date of 2045, so a little bit more aggressive. Gibraltar and Sweden have also pushed it one notch higher, and they will actually change their carbon emissions compared to the 1990 baseline, which is a little bit tighter. Our hats off to the Maldives, which have actually pledged to achieve net zero by 2030. That's the most aggressive target out of all the countries so far. As you can see at the bottom of the screen, India will reduce emissions intensity as a percent of their gross domestic product, and specifically 45% from 2005 levels by the year 2030, and hopes to achieve about 50% cumulative electric power installed capacity from non-fossil fuel-based energy resources by 2030. Their long-term goal of reaching net zero emissions is by 2070. Again, this will be available to all of you, and you have all the resources here so that you can read as much detail as you wish. Because of these pledges that we've seen around the world, we have seen a few new ecosystems emerge that are all closely related to the net zero economy. For instance, one of them is the next generation of the World Wide Web, which we call Web 3.0. We have also seen omni-channel marketing, e-commerce platforms, marketplaces, the creator economy, metaverse and omniverse emerge, all being related to help net zero be attained as to the targets that I just highlighted. When we examine the global landscape, we also notice that there are certain key net zero drivers that can accelerate this agenda. First, I would like to call your attention to the massive scientific advancements. Of course, throughout history, we've always had scientific discoveries, but over the last few years, due to a convergence of factors, we've seen more discoveries than over the last 20, 30 years combined. We've also seen several frontier technologies emerge that have had profound impact not only on our society, but also on the economy. Legal and regulatory frameworks have always been one tiny step behind technology and had to catch up, but now we're experiencing such a rapid pace of innovation, and novel technologies emerge almost on a high pace that is impossible to keep track of. So many legal and regulatory frameworks are struggling to adjust. For instance, as you know, the EU Digital Act had just come out, and now it already has to be adjusted to adapt to Web3, Metaverse, Omniverse, which were not included, just to give you a few examples. Additionally, quantum technologies are just around the corner, and they have not been included either. So a lot of scholars are working now to try to adjust that regulatory framework to accommodate for these. Taxation is also very important. As we know, Just advocacy and education have not been sufficient. We've been trying those for many years. So introducing new taxation law that can incentivize net zero is very important. We've also seen massive changes in population demographics, which can have, as we'll see, positive and some potentially negative consequences on our net zero agenda. When we look at the economic impact, of course, that's not our focus today, but I just wanted to highlight two key markets that are essential for our net zero efforts. The digital transformation global market is considered one key driver, and it is expected to reach $6.8 trillion by 2026, growing at a CAGR of 15.5%. Another market that, of course, is highly relevant to the net zero economy is the global green technology market, which is expected to reach $65 billion and also grow at a CAGR of 7.5. Clean tech is powered by a lot of converging technologies. And this list does not mean to be all inclusive, but I'll show a few technologies and highlight the fact that they can have huge contributions to our net zero efforts. Of course, as you know, I'm a passionate blockchain technology advocate. And given that we're talking about Web 3.0 and blockchain technologies are a foundational technology to Web 3.0, they are listed in first place here. When we combine the benefits of blockchain technologies with AI, robotics, augmented reality, virtual reality, extended reality, 3D printing, high-speed networks such as 5G and 6G, with the growth of the Internet of Things, as well as the upcoming next-generation computing advances such as quantum, DNA, neuromorphic computing, edge computing, to just say a few, we can really understand why all these converging technologies can amplify and augment our current net zero efforts. What are some of the targets that we have to achieve and focus upon? As you know, there's several things we need to focus on. Here are just a few elements. Coral reefs, sea level rise, droughts, and an increase in natural disasters are just a few areas that have been identified as top priorities. So it's really essential for us to develop technologies that can help us either prevent these, monitor them better, or be able to manage them in a more efficient and effective way when they occur. Here are a few more statistics that are very concerning. Energy-related carbon emissions increased 6% in 2021, and they're predicted to still increase for a few years before we can actually start seeing a decrease. As you can also see, developed countries provided 79.6 billion in climate finance in 2019, and that was still not sufficient. So that's why it's expected that governments, business leaders, and venture capital will have to infuse the ecosystem with significantly more dollars. As you can see, we're still falling short $100 billion to achieve the targets that we set out to do. As was already highlighted in the introduction today, rising global temperatures have been unfortunately causing havoc around the world. As you can see, the curve has been increasing. I'm sure you're all familiar with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal 13 and the targets, but I thought it would be good to remind ourselves a little bit about a few. So specifically, strengthen resilience and adaptive capacity to climate-related hazards and natural disasters, implement a commitment undertaken by developed country parties to the United Nations framework, promote mechanisms for raising capacity for effective climate change-related planning and management in least developed countries and small island developing states, including focusing on women, youth, local and marginalized communities. I really enjoyed this infographic, and I hope you too, because it gives a very nice one glance view about how we can envision this roadmap by 2050 and what needs to happen. As you can see, for a few more years, we're not able to see changes very significantly, but around 2030, we will start to see this slope going down, hopefully. The domains that you see listed here are really important: buildings, transportation, electricity, and industry. One of the major areas that all countries that have pledged net zero have agreed upon is to have no new sales of fossil fuel boilers. That's very important. As you can see, that's by 2025. For instance, just a few days ago, it was also announced that several countries will not allow any more sales of vehicles that are using diesel fuels. So that will also be a major change. As you can see here, electric cars are already 60% of sales expected by 2030. All new buildings by then should be zero carbon ready, and we should have universal energy access if everything goes as planned. And as you can see, by 2035, the plan is to have no more traditional car sales, and electric heavy trucks should be 50% of sales. So we're advancing from electric personal cars to electric trucks as well. And as you can see, we're progressing, if everything goes as planned, towards also having most appliances and cooling systems to be net zero mindful and efficient, and then also to have buildings retrofitted to zero carbon ready levels. By 2045, half of heating demand would be met by heat pumps, and then hopefully by 2050, more than 85% of buildings would be ready. This is another chart that I thought was worth reviewing together. These are also priority areas identified in adaptation components of nationally determined contributions. So this is a list that highlights what most organizations and governments have agreed on working on together. So ocean ecosystems, urban areas and other human habitats, disaster risk management, coastal and low-lying areas, key economic sectors and services, human health, freshwater resources, terrestrial and wetland ecosystems, food production and nutritional security are all areas of priority that are included in those pieces of legislation that we highlighted at the beginning of our conversation. For those of you that might not be familiar with the building blocks of a low carbon economy, I thought this is an infographic that again quickly highlights what we need to focus on, and again some of the pillars and enabling accelerators that we have. So for instance, financial services are considered, according to Deloitte, to be an enabling accelerator. As we already mentioned, having the right legal and regulatory guidelines is crucial to succeed. And then what we're going to focus on for the majority of my presentation is the technology, which is considered a digital enabler. This infographic also highlights some of the upstream activities and some of the downstream activities that can contribute to our net zero efforts. So how are we supposed to achieve all this? Now that we talked about the global landscape, some of the targets, some of the drivers, what can we actually do with all this technology? So please allow me to share a few details about how we can leverage technology to attain net zero by 2050. As we already mentioned earlier, the Internet of Things and the industrial Internet of Things are absolutely key in all these efforts. Additionally, as you know, many countries have started their transition to 5G networks, and some countries, such as South Korea, are already working on 6G networks. In the research community, many universities are already experimenting with 10G networks, just so that you can understand how fast the industry is developing. Of course, artificial intelligence, and when we say artificial intelligence, we're talking about the full portfolio of AI tools and methods, as well as blockchain technologies, which are part of the distributed ledger technologies, and Web3, which is the key focus point of our presentation today, as well as cloud and edge computing, are all very important. So what is this Web 3.0 that we referenced already? So as we know, we've advanced from Web 1.0, that was the first iteration, which was static, to Web 2.0, and now we're transitioning to Web 3.0. At this time, there's no one in the world who has achieved Web 3.0 at a national level. There are only pockets and pilots. And certain industries are more advanced, others less. Certain countries or cities have made huge progress, but it's a transition. It's not accomplished yet. Here are just a few key elements. I know we can't focus on the details of a Web 3.0 architecture because that would take a full workshop for a few days, but at least a few elements I wanted to highlight. So Web 3.0 key features are the fact that it will be decentralized, there will be increased connectivity, we will be able to use semantic web analysis, we will be able to leverage 3D graphics. As we already highlighted, we'll be able to deploy the full arsenal in our AI portfolio. And more importantly, it will be a trustless and permissionless environment. According to 101 blockchains, you also see a few of the advantages of Web3. And again, there are many more, but here are a few that are relevant for our conversation today. Control over data is essential. If we're going to have this Web 3.0 architecture around the world, it's going to enable a lot of citizens to have control over their data. So that's essential. Freedom for interactions, better security, advantages for those that want to be part of the creator economy, and ubiquitous access to data. Here, I wanted to also highlight for those of you that are interested that the Web3 stack has multiple layers, and we don't need to go into the details, but for those of you that are interested, it would be really helpful if you want to better understand why this technology is so important in offering net zero acceleration to be able to study it more in depth. Here, I wanted to also highlight some of the key differences between Web 2.0 and Web 3.0. We already highlighted a few, but just to mention, in addition to the fact that the technology is different, data ownership is different, but also the reach, as we highlighted. Now, if all our mobile devices can be part of the World Wide Web in a decentralized fashion, imagine how powerful of a tool we will have available. I don't want to give you a headache, but I just wanted you to have it available. When we talk about blockchain, please note that there are multiple types of blockchain, and it's really essential to understand when we mention one of them, like a public blockchain or a private blockchain or a federated blockchain or a hybrid blockchain. All of these can be helpful when we work towards a net zero economy. It's just essential to do a thorough feasibility analysis and decide in which kind of use case each of these might be appropriate or not. Same way, when we mention the word blockchain technology, it's really important to specify if we're talking about a permission versus permissionless type of system, because again, there are use cases that fit either one, but it's very important to decide upfront. All of these, or a combination thereof, can be very helpful when we work towards Web 3.0. As we mentioned, all those targets have plenty of applications for these blockchain opportunities. Here again, I wanted to highlight the fact that when we think about use cases that support climate mitigation and adaptation, when you think about how you can structure your approach, you want to think about the financing, you want to think about visibility and alignment, and about awareness and access. And when you start to evaluate all those domains that we mentioned earlier, according to these parameters, it can allow you to prioritize and decide how to proceed. I also wanted to quickly highlight the fact that when we talk about Web 3.0, we can think about also governing in a different way instead of just traditional forms of governance. And one of the alternative options that are afforded to us by a Web 3.0 architecture that leverages blockchain technologies are decentralized autonomous organizations. And when we say decentralized autonomous organizations, we emphasize that there's a different way of governance that's decentralized and bottom up as opposed to top down. And you can see that there are a lot of types of DAOs that could be all used for climate change wonderful purposes. For instance, there are already a few that have focused heavily on philanthropy. There are a few that already are focusing on impact investments. And I hope that over the next few years, we have not only a more refined DAO offering, but also maybe hybrid formats where corporations learn how to integrate some of these forms of governance into their current corporate structure. Again, we don't have to focus too much on the details, but I just wanted to highlight that when we talk about a decentralized economy, you have a whole ecosystem, but the core is the technology, as you can see. So as you recall, when I shared the keynote overview, I mentioned that we're going to talk about some strategic considerations. So we started with the global landscape. We talked about the strategic drivers. We talked about some of this technology and gave you just a few highlights about what type of technologies could be converging. But now let's talk about strategic elements. So when we set out to embark on a net zero roadmap, it's really important to start thinking about the impact on vulnerable communities, not just on cities that are already highly advanced. Also, we need to think about redesigning education systems. If we want the future citizens of the world that need to live in the cities by 2030, 2035, 2045, 2050, we need to educate our youth. So it's very important to rethink how to embed all these net zero elements into education. And when we're talking about education, I would like to emphasize that I'm referring even preschool, elementary school, middle school, so that when those children grow up to be in the workforce, they are already equipped with all the tools, skills, knowledge necessary to function in a net zero economy. Of course, the same applies to the workforce. And I use the word recalibration because it's going to require not only new job creation, some jobs will disappear, some type of skills will have to be completely changed, what we call upskilling or reskilling, and some skills will have to be augmented with technology because otherwise they're not going to be able to help the net zero economy the way we expect it to. We also have to redesign business models. We can't expect old business models that we used 50 years ago to fit all this net zero economy. As I already highlighted, we're using advanced, modern, emerging technologies to serve as a foundation. So therefore, we'll need not only new business models, but also new management styles and new financial instruments to support all this. Of course, all this will have challenges, and I'm going to focus on those first, and then I'll also share some of the opportunities we have. When we think about the challenges of this net zero roadmap, digital ethics is something I want to call your attention to and that I've dedicated quite a lot of time and effort to. All emerging technologies have some ethical challenges. If we don't put the appropriate proactive digital ethics programs in place and embed ethical principles and ethical controls at every single step into the fabric of our roadmap, a lot of negative consequences can occur. Similarly, we need to build proactive cybersecurity programs. As we already highlighted at the beginning of the presentation, regulatory hurdles, legal frameworks, are behind, and they'll have to be updated to keep pace with all these scientific and technological advances. I cannot emphasize enough how important it is to also have appropriate international standards that are supporting this net zero economy. Right now, we have a lot of disparate pilot efforts around the world, and the pilots are amazing. However, if we cannot scale them and cannot develop standards and metrics to measure how we're doing, we're not going to succeed. We're just going to spend a lot of money, time, and effort and not going to be able to measure our impact. It's also important to understand that although net zero is a quite complex term, there are many other things that are part of the United Nations Sustainable Goals, and they're highly related, but they're not identical. So what we need to do to achieve UN SDG goals is not always perfectly harmonized with what we need to do to achieve net zero. As a matter of fact, sometimes they might appear in conflict. So we need to spend time thinking how to align our efforts so that we can have an augmented effect as opposed to counteract what we're doing. And of course, I'm sure you'll agree that we have to be mindful about not violating human rights. The same way like during pandemic times, in our effort to try to help with technology, unfortunately, a lot of human rights were violated around the world. The same way when we push towards a net zero aggressive agenda, we might end up using technology in ways that might violate human rights. So again, very important to think about these things early and be mindful how we deploy technology to attain net zero and uphold human rights. So now that we talked about the challenges, I wanted to also talk about opportunities. So we have an opportunity to educate the population, as we mentioned, so that we increase literacy and fluency in net zero. We have also the opportunity to democratize and monetize data, as we mentioned earlier, that Web3 infrastructure allows us to do that. So we could conceive also a way to reward every citizen that contributes to that. Right now, we're only at a stage where big corporations are rewarded for doing that. With Web3 architecture, each citizen could contribute to that. And we have pockets of that happening around the world, but they're minuscule compared to what we need. Digital identity, digital inclusion, and financial inclusion are essential in achieving our goals. We already mentioned creating a culture of digital ethics and cyber resilience, new governance models, and I would like to also emphasize the fact that you cannot achieve net zero on your own as a city or as a country. We must work together. So I think over the last few years, many countries have realized that in order to achieve net zero, we must have cross-border agreements and global collaboration between multiple stakeholders. That means governments, businesses, NGOs, academia, everybody will have to pitch in and be part of this ecosystem to succeed. I also, I recently wrote an article. It is my opinion that we have to also reshift the way we have our mindset for leaders for this net zero economy. So a net zero focused leadership is essential. Leaders will have to completely rethink the way they not only disrupt themselves and reskill themselves, but also their workforce. Skills that used to be sufficient over the last 20, 30, 40, 50 years to be a great leader will not suffice in this economy. In this new net zero economy, leaders will have to have technical skills, ethical skills, cyber skills, be versatile in SDGs and net zero techniques, as well as all the other elements that traditionally were required from a leader. As we already alluded to, there can be an amplified impact of Web 3.0 on United Nations SDGs. And as we mentioned, the SDGs can have also an amplified impact on each other. So what specific elements in Web 3.0 can improve those net zero indicators? Democratizing access to data will help everybody contribute. Data ownership will allow citizens that wish to be mindful and be good net zero citizens to participate in a more dynamic way. The net zero impact tracking will be much easier with the help of blockchain and artificial intelligence tools. We can have not only good metrics, but also good predictive capabilities. Net zero contributions can be authenticated, and of course, certificates can be issued. As you might be aware, there are a lot of experts who caution that over the last few years, we've seen a lot of greenwashing. And for those of you that might not know what that is, corporations sometimes stated they were contributing towards the net zero ecosystem, but unfortunately, when an audit was done, it was not always the case. So greenwashing is the term that shows that, unfortunately, the same way like you have money laundering, there was an attempt to portray that there were initiatives and efforts towards net zero, but unfortunately, nothing was happening. So with Web 3.0, due to some of the unique features that blockchain technology can have, we can actually generate authentication of these certificates that show that we're contributing towards net zero as a corporation. I'm not going to go over all of them. I just wanted you to have all the UN SDG 13 indicators listed so that you can see why we're so focused on them. And then I also wanted to use this keynote as a call to action for us to think about the same way we have a Bill of Rights for healthcare, to have a net zero Bill of Rights and a net zero code of conduct. I think that's essential if we want to really be able to move the needle. As I referenced earlier, net zero leadership is essential, and it will include redesigning governance. As I mentioned before, the decentralized autonomous organizations are allowing us to make decisions in a decentralized fashion. So in closing, I wanted to share a few thoughts about the future. It is my opinion, based on my experience, that deploying digital twin technology for net zero economy can be very helpful. We don't have time, but I included it here and I'll share the presentation later. You can watch an amazing video offered by NVIDIA in partnership with Google Earth, where they show how they created a digital twin of planet Earth. And they're deploying the latest technologies such as blockchain and AI, like I shared today, to try to understand how to prevent some of the catastrophic climate events we've seen, and also how to accelerate the strategic roadmap. Also, net zero citizenship. In the future, we might have a net zero passport, and it will show how much each citizen contributes to net zero. Smart cities that are smart net zero cities. There are already more than 1,000 cities around the world that as of today have pledged net zero and are doing a lot of efforts. Again, there's a great video offered by the European Union that shows how Finland and Sweden are doing it. They're only pilots, but I encourage you, if you're interested, to see, because those videos give you a better flavor than just a PowerPoint presentation. And these two are my contribution. I'm hoping that in the future we have net zero global data exchanges, where not only individuals share data, but also corporations. The same way like during the pandemic, big pharma companies came together and shared the necessary data to produce the vaccines faster than ever. We can also have corporations share the essential data so that we can contribute to this net zero effort and accelerate and maybe even attain it earlier than 2030. As you know, several cities around the world, about 15, are predicted to be completely underwater, including the one where I live in Miami, USA. It's predicted to be underwater by 2050. So I don't think that just because we pledged 2050, we should wait that long. We should try to accelerate this. And I also think that in addition to the global data exchanges, having human-centric data centers is essential. And what that means is that we'll think about the impact on the individual, not only on the corporations. These were some of the thoughts I wanted to highlight, and I wanted to thank you for the opportunity to share. And I'm looking forward to hearing some questions from you. I hope to be able to answer at least a few, and I'll also make the presentation available so that you can access all the resources that I've prepared in a supporting slide. Thank you so much for the opportunity to present. Any questions?
Guys, do you have any questions regarding this session? Audible? Guys, do you have any questions regarding this session?
I see a few hands.
Please come.
Yes.
Or you can maybe just repeat the question if you wish. Yeah.
Morning, ma'am. The Bill of Rights. We have many climate. Democratic and all the countries, but
I can't hear the question. If you can please repeat it. I'm not able to hear the question.
ma'am, you spoke about net zero Bill of Rights. Am I audible, ma'am?
I'm so sorry. I can hear you only say one word and then it cuts out. Maybe you can put it in the chat.
Ma'am, we are typing.
Like to speak?
Ma'am, I'm audible now, ma'am.
Hello?
Yeah. Am I audible, ma'am?
Yes, now yes.
You spoke about net zero Bill of Rights.
Yes.
Whether the countries will come together for framing the Bill of Rights and to oblige for it, because international law is not obligatory in nature.
Absolutely, you're totally right. Yes, it would have to be a collaboration, and as you know, a Bill of Rights would just be a voluntary effort. But that would be a great research project for students. So if you guys are willing to start, I'm happy to collaborate. Great. If there are no other questions, I want to make sure we're mindful for the rest of the speakers who have prepared keynotes for you as well. Thank you again for the opportunity.
Yeah, speak it here.
Yes.
Come here, come here, come here.
Do we have one more question, or do we move on to the next
Yes, ma'am.
keynote?
Ma'am, am I audible, ma'am?
Yes.
Ma'am, as you have mentioned in your speech, uh, even in India, we have a report. Some critical roads and property networks in Mumbai, Kochi, and even Chennai, Visakhapatnam, Thiruvananthapuram will be drowned by 2050 because of rise in sea level. So this is a major issue which is concerning coastal cities in India. So do you think that in the international level, we can take any collaborative efforts to prevent this, ma'am? Because it's a very huge populated country, ma'am. Almost 50% of the population will be affected due to this.
You're absolutely right. And if you recall in that infographic, coastal flooding was one of the first priorities identified. And yes, there are scientists who have actually developed some very creative ways. So repopulating coral reefs, certain kind of structures in the ocean that can help. Also planting mangroves, all kinds of very creative projects are available around the world on the scientific side. Now, from a legislative and regulatory perspective, yes, there are several cities who have put strategic plans in place around the world, but I agree with you. I wish we had a twin cities project where everybody could leverage their pilot programs and learn from each other. So I hope that others hear us and start a project like that, the same way like Smart Cities had this type of initiative where lessons learned were able to be shared. So you make a great point, and I'm going to look up to see if there are opportunities already for collaboration between cities, and I'll share them with the conference organizer.
Thank you, ma'am.
Great. Thank you so much for the opportunity to answer a few questions. And I pass the floor now to the next keynote speaker.
Our second speaker is Ms. Lori Elizabeth Souza, who's an entrepreneur at heart, has a diverse background and a vast experience in many industry sectors. She holds an MBA in global management, BS in technology, a postbaccalaureate in education, and a bachelor's in metaphysical science. She is a founder of Innovative RV and Digital Asset Consulting. She offers advisory consulting, leadership in personal, then digital and global transformation through the current paradigm world of transacting with digital assets. Ms. Lori is a blockchain maturity model advisor and an instructor with the Common Blockchain Association. She is a visionary and enjoys sharing the mindset shift necessary for creating a better future on planet Earth. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me? Hello? Okay, good. You can hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Well, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me to this symposium. And I'd like to thank Adv.Abhishek Castro for inviting me, and Dr. Santhosh Kumar. And I think everybody's moving around a little bit after an hour talk, and I really want to share with you how grateful I am to be here and to speak with all of you. And I feel like I'm right here in the classroom with the view of all of you. So, and also I want to thank Dr. Ingrid, who did a wonderful talk on decentralization and the importance of that. That has been my main area of talking and speaking, is in the decentralization and how important that is to decentralize our data and work on the Web 3.0 as a source of that. And of course, there's lots of jobs, lots of legal aspects that come along with that. So I just wanted to put my 2 cents in there, because my talk today is not about decentralization. I get to talk about the coastal regions. And so that's near and dear to my heart. There's no coincidence you have 2 speakers here from the state of Florida in the US. So I'm actually on the other side of Florida from Dr. Ingrid. And I'm going to share with you a map. Let's see if I can get that up here real quick, just so you can you see my map? Can you see the map here? So of course this is Google. We all have access to Google and you guys are here. I'm like over here. I started so you can see exactly where I am right now. But the most storms, the most coastal storms that happen, the hurricanes, are in this region right here where the Atlantic Ocean, the Caribbean Sea, and the Gulf of Mexico are. So we're directly impacted in the state of Florida, Louisiana, the coast of Mississippi, Alabama, and Texas, this whole area, as well as all of the Caribbean islands. If I blow this up, this is my favorite part right here. This whole area has more hurricanes and more storms. And so we're going to look at that. I'm going to focus on this area because I've done a lot of work and travel in this area as it pertains to storms. So I get to share some of my personal experience with it as well. So I'm going to go up a little closer so you can see the coastal region I'm in is in St. Petersburg, Florida, specifically right in the area of the Barrier Islands. The Hurricane Ian, which was very large, came around and was supposed to hit right directly where we were into Tampa Bay. But what happened was it ended up hitting, well, it affected all of the state of Florida. But one particular area I'm going to share with you in the presentation is this area right here is called Sanibel Island. So we'll talk about that as an example of the coastal regions and the rising waters, and that little island unfortunately is not habitable right now anymore. So we're already seeing it. We're already seeing the effects of the coastal regions. So now that I'm sharing my screen, let me see how I can stop sharing it. Okay, so I'm going to get started with my presentation, but I want to, are all of you practicing students right now that I'm talking to, just to make sure? So I noticed the title of the talk is called A Shift from Papers to Practice. And I really liked that, and I want to focus on that and really bring in what some of the opportunities are with climate change in the legal field, because there's so many different aspects, legal aspects that are going to be needed and that are needed. And having experienced myself a natural disaster with a hurricane, I got to know firsthand all the legal aspects as well. So let me get right into my presentation and share. Here we go. So a shift from papers to practice. Whoops, whoa, I don't want to go through that quick. Sidelining the cost of development and coastal issues is what I'm going to be focusing on. And I love the coast. I live on the coast myself. And so this was a little bit about me. I got an introduction already, so thank you so much. But I wanted to share something with you so that you don't get discouraged. Where you are today is not exactly where you're going to move through your career, where your career takes you, and where the economy and where the where you're going to end up places you don't even know yet. Okay. And so when I started out my career, I spent a lot of years in school for engineering, and I worked in engineering, and I was affected by a recession in the dot-com recession. So I switched my career and moved on into what my hobby was, which was real estate. And I studied real estate, and I ended up running a real estate firm. And so after that, I went into education and have been teaching business education. And now I teach on the digital economy and also how cryptocurrency and tokenization are affecting decentralization as well. So I want to share with you, I had no idea I'd be doing this 10 years ago, or even 15 years ago, or even 20 years ago. So your career will change with you. And so that, especially with how fast everything is moving. So from papers to practice, I like to call that from apprentice to master. It's another way of saying it in practical terms. because, you know, you're in school right now, you're writing papers and you're thinking of theories and things that can work, but to actually put it into application is where you're going to move from apprentice to master. And had somebody that I worked with years ago tell me an apprenticeship is going to be 1 to 3 years, and that holds true. I've tried it out with any new business. The first through third year is your practice, is where you really get it down. And then you become a master of your craft after 5 years of doing the same thing. Okay, so that gives you an idea. Now that might be a little faster, you know, with how fast technology is moving, we might need to really speed up the apprenticeship a lot, right? Because there's so much technology that's happening in the decentralized world, which needs to anyway. So I wanted to have you think of it in terms of from papers to practice to apprenticeship to master. And then we're going to look at some coastal change issues, the recognizing that change is taking place, which we've spoken about already, and how to address the changes and the legal aspects that are involved with all of these changes that we're seeing with our weather and with climate change and global warming. So we know that the waters are rising and global warming is here. This is an increase in natural disasters. And so the environmental issues, the cause, the weather, the natural disasters, and the sea level rise affect not only our food supply, but some considerations are temporary shelters, emergency response, commerce. Commerce is down once we have natural disaster, new construction regulations, and housing requirements. So if you look at those fields, all of them require and have legal aspects to them. So how do you get into a legal field in one of these areas? Well, we're going to look at that and how point of entry can happen for students who are entering into their new vocations. So here's some questions to ask legally. Is there emergency response in place? Who's going to provide temporary shelters and where are they going to be? And who's going to pay for them? Who's doing the cleanup and how will the cleanup be done? Very important pieces, and these are the first steps to a natural disaster. There's also going to be loss of business. So a municipality or a city or a county might not be getting the income or the revenue that they're used to getting. And so there will be some concerns with running local governments. Loss of housing for all the population in the local area. Insurance carrier costs. This is another area of concern. What type of insurance is available? Is there flood insurance in place for that region? And how much are those costs? I know with the state of Florida, since the onset of Hurricane Ian, which was in October of 2022, not even 6 months ago. Most all insurance carriers have pulled out of the state of Florida. So it has increased insurance rates dramatically, if not up to 50% in some areas. And not all of those insurance increases have taken place yet. New construction regulations also come into place. If an area has been flooded, now you're looking at having to build in a different way. For example, in the area I'm in, the construction regulation has changed. Anybody who has lost their building or it was completely damaged and they need and they only have the land has to build 11 feet high. And so that can be very costly. And that's something to think about as construction and what those regulations are and legally what needs to be done, what type of paperwork needs to be done, and then housing requirements as well. So global warming is, as human population increases, we're seeing the icebergs melting in the Arctic, causing the sea level rise and the temperatures in the sea increase. And what happens is we're seeing increased hurricanes, typhoons, tropical storms, and tornadoes all over the world. And it is directly impacting the area, all the coastal areas, which we're focusing on during this presentation. Which all the coastal areas are just over 1/5 of the entire world population, which it's much higher for you in India. Here's the a little map for us to look at. The amount of people affected, and this is an older one. This is a very nice one for being on a slide here to show, but I couldn't get an updated one. But it's a good idea of where the most storms are and how the highly populated areas will be affected and are affected. Yeah, with the number of people. So all coastal regions are affected, specifically the areas in red where the higher populations are. So yes. So why the coast? Isn't it beautiful? Don't you love to be there? It brings the nature and the calmness of the sea, and the lifestyle of living by the sea is what so many people want, right? But also so many people vacation and go visit the water and the beach, and there's so much commerce because of that. So think of all the businesses that have set up along the sea, along the coast, so that they can make money, or even all the vendors that are along the coast. When there is a natural disaster, such as a typhoon or a hurricane, then we're looking at all that revenue gone for that area. And so if it's mild, they can rebuild. But if it's devastating where it wipes out the entire region, then that region may have to make some big choices and may not be able to rebuild. So here's an area, let's gonna look at a couple things from 2022, just last year. Last year, in this area here in the Pacific, 22 named storms happened, whereas the 30-year average was 26 storms. Now that information was from Storm Geo, and you could already see how much it's increased. The number of named storms, the number of typhoons in 1 year almost reaches the average of 30 years. So we're looking at some devastation that's been happening, and the same holds true with hurricanes in the Atlantic Ocean, the Caribbean Sea, and the Gulf of Mexico. So this is a main area that we see lots of storms, all of the Caribbean islands, and then portion of Central America, and then the Gulf of Mexico, and all of Florida. So this was just 2022 hurricanes, had a record number of hurricanes. So as we see the waters warm, it promotes more storms. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story. So on November 11th, 2020, we had a tropical storm Ida in the area. I showed you the map. My life changed. And so on a personal level, I want to share this with you because you probably know some people that have been through maybe a natural disaster or a flood, or I heard you say monsoon as well. I was home and I was hit with storm surge, and it was a 4-foot storm surge, and 2 feet of that water went throughout our entire neighborhood and flooded. It just started coming in so fast. And I was a little scared because I was on a Zoom call, just conducting normal business, right? And I see water just starting to pour in. I opened the front door, didn't even know it. Saw water starting to pour into my front yard and then just filled the entire house. Had to think quick and put the turn the breakers off for the electric. At the end of the day, it ended about 1 a.m. in the morning, started at 7 at night, ended at about 1 a.m. in the morning when the water was completely stopped rushing in. So yeah, so, you know, I jumped up on the countertop and I I stayed up there because I didn't know how high it was going to go. I'm quite lucky because a lot of other houses had higher water damage, level water damage than I did. But the cost of that ended up being, I had a quote come in from my insurance, was over $80,000 of damage. And so something that happened like that can just devastate your entire life, right? And so I lost my home for 1 year because I had to go through a series of events to remedy. And during that 1 year, because I didn't have a home, I was traveling and staying in different places, and it did affect the income I was making. So we have to make some decisions during the natural disasters as well, especially if you're in it or the people that you love are in it, of what to do with your time. You have to go through a series of events you never thought you had to go through before. And most of my time was to get my house back up and going as in quick a manner as possible. So I want to share with the pros and cons because I don't want to make it a sad story. I want to tell you how I overcame this and went through it, right? I did have to argue with the city because the city wanted to condemn my house. And so those are some decisions legally that an attorney would be useful for, right? And that's a specialty, and that would be in the environmental field, is the permits or working with the city and the lawful activity of what the city is doing for their property owners. But they wanted to condemn it. They condemned the home right behind me, and they red tagged a house in front of me, and then I was right in between those two where a large amount of water came in. And so I actually fought with them. I got all of the necessary paperwork. I got the appraisal on the house done to prove the value of the house. And there is a rule. We have FEMA here. And FEMA is the Federal Emergency Response. So the federal emergency response steps in when anytime there's a hurricane or a flood for the state of Florida. Of course, FEMA steps in for any natural disaster in the U.S., depending on the area. For example, in California, it's fires. So FEMA brings in some qualifiers that say, we'll pay your insurance if you meet these standards. Well, my city was telling me I didn't meet the standards. It's called a 50% rule. If you have over 50% damage to your property, then they can condemn it. They can say, no, you can't rebuild it because you have over 50% damage. And that's as far as costs, right? Well, so I fought with it, got an appraisal, and good thing the values had gone up that year. And it required new, can you hear me? Is it okay? Is my sound still? Okay, good. Thanks. My microphone just beeped at me for some reason. So it required all new electrical and all new plumbing. I also required a surveyor, and that's another area of legal aspect that's needed. The surveyor told me I didn't need a new floor. Well, I did need a new floor. And he knocked on it, he walked around the entire house and said, no, you don't need a new floor. We're not going to cover the cost. So those costs came out of pocket because the surveyor said that I didn't need a new floor. Well, we tore up the floor and there's mold underneath the floor. So that was just going to be an additional damage to justify what the city wanted to do. So the good news is my flood insurance, I did get the city, I showed them the appraisal. I did get them to keep my house and allow me to rebuild it. But the caveat was I needed to pay for the electrical and the plumbing and the floor. One of the other benefits was while I was waiting for the city to approve the permits, I found wonderful places to stay because also what was happening was COVID during that time and nobody was traveling. And so travel was very inexpensive during that time. And so I got to stay in some really nice places for about 50% off because they were very hungry for people to stay. So it came in to my advantage during that time. I had to fire the first set of contractors because while they were hired to do some cleanup, I came back to Florida when I got the permit and they hadn't done anything. And so that extended my amount of time I was out of the home. And then the good news was I got to hire some really nice contractors that got the work done for less money. And my home is fully remodeled now. I'm alive to tell about it. And until the next storm, right? Because everybody in the area, you know, when Hurricane Ian came, we were like, oh no, this is it. Everything's going under. You see the pictures, right? So I want to share with you some of the coastal areas after Hurricane Ian. This is one area down where I showed you the map and what the flooding can do and how it can just wipe out an entire area because this is a high standing water table and it doesn't go away fast, especially when the water comes in, it's there. So before Hurricane Ian, this is another view of Sanibel Island. It's a very beautiful view, isn't it? This island was a very highly sought after vacation spot. And here's a couple other pictures. So this is Sanibel Island on the map here. It's close to Fort Myers, Florida, and there was a long bridge throughout the water here to get to it. But it had it was an island that was known for its seashell beach. And this is a picture of all the seashells on the beach that you could actually go and just carry bags of seashells if you wanted to. They just would wash up all the time. Well, after Hurricane Ian, the bridge was covered with water. The amount of storm surge and from the Hurricane Ian, it wiped out the bridge to even get to the island. And most of the island it had gone underwater. This is what it looked like with the damage from the water and the hurricane. You don't think that water does that much damage, but when you have the wind as well, it's this all these are part of a building that just blew in the streets. And then you could see some of the trees when the hurricane is very strong, they have no leaves on them anymore. That's a good way to look at pictures to see how strong the winds are, is if the leaves are still on the trees, right? But back here you can see that some of them have already lost their leaves. So I found out what insurance companies look at and what kind of damage, you know, if the roof blows off, then, you know, they can use hurricane coverage. If the roof doesn't blow off, then you have to use flood coverage. It's a really interesting niche, right? You don't think of those until you have to make those decisions. And then here's what the beach looks like today. And a lot of the houses are not inhabitable anymore because of the damage, the structural damage. They've had to be gutted, and then the wind damage as well. So here you even see some of the trees have, it's a good way to judge how high the winds are. And then how deep the water came, how the cars go underwater, you know, it changes everything. You know, you have a car one day and you don't. By the way, my car did flood in this tropical storm Ida, so I did have to come get it towed away because the um, the insurance company said, well, it's too old of a car and there's no way we could replace it, so we're going to give you money to go buy a new one, which wasn't amount of money to buy a new one, but you know, those are, at least they gave me something. So I rented a car for a month or two until I figured out what I was going to do. Now this is quite a devastation. If you look, it's concrete. So you know, one area you could get into is even forensics when it comes to determining storm damage, right? Or becoming an insurance adjuster, where you have to make decisions based on your visualization. So they have to, you know, take pictures and assess the damages and determine the cost. So there's a process that's involved that's very timely. The insurance can take 2 to 3 weeks of going through all of their data to determine how much is going to be paid out if there is insurance available. So recovery from storms. To restore a property can take anywhere from 6 months to 2 years, and that's taking an existing property and putting it back together. But if the property is actually completely destroyed and devastated, it's going to take 2 to 5 years to rebuild, and that's only if the area will allow it to be, and if the homeowner or the property owner, the business owner, can afford to rebuild with the new building regulations. So those are some considerations, legal considerations, when it comes to decision making in recovery phase. So coastal costs that occur here are flood insurance rates and construction costs, shelter costs, loss in revenue, loss in business, and loss in housing. These are all factors that individuals in flooded areas or coastal regions will have to consider. These are all considerations in decision making. And for municipalities as well. Like I said, the city that I'm in, they changed their building regulations where anybody who's rebuilding has to build 11 feet up in the air. And that's quite costly. And oh, my neighbor is actually going to be moving. She's actually going through the process of having her home lifted, which is going to take a couple of cranes and some other heavy machinery to lift the house. And the cost for her to do that is $250,000. So they can run quite high to meet the city regulations. So who are some people that get involved? We have the property owners are definitely involved. Local governments are involved, emergency response, attorneys, insurance, contractors, and material suppliers. So if you think about it, all of these areas have legal aspects to them. I'm going to focus on emergency response a little bit because not every area has well-formed teams of emergency response. So there's a lot of volunteerism that happens during this time. A lot of people that volunteer their time to take part in helping in the cleanup phase. So the legal process, and this is what I learned and what I went through and what a lot of cities go through. So first is the cleanup. And like I said, volunteers will come in, property owners will help each other out, and shelters also needing to be considered. City permitting This is something that is required before anybody can do any construction. There are city officials that drive around and say, you know, you can't start construction until you have a permit. And so these are, every area municipality is different how they handle their permitting and what their costs are, but there are costs involved to that. Insurance claims, depending on the insurance. I know in the US, we have different types of insurance. We have hurricane insurance and flood insurance and fire and structure insurance and homeowners. And so there's many different types of insurances to hold. Unfortunately, in a coastal area, it is a requirement if somebody's getting a loan on a property to have flood insurance, or the lenders will not loan. Building codes, engineers and contractors. So this is an order of who we have to contact. So we have to follow building codes, hire the engineers and contractors to follow those building codes. So not only are you getting engineers and contractors, you're having to, as a homeowner, property owner, determine which contractors know about these new building codes. And so the interview process is pretty interesting as well. Utility companies, a lot of times the utilities are down. So that's something to think about. Are the utilities in the area well equipped to handle the natural disaster, or are they going to be down for weeks or days at a time, or months, as they were in the Caribbean? So the Florida Hurricane Ian wasn't as bad as the hurricanes in the Caribbean back in 2017. They were some of the largest, strongest hurricanes was Hurricane Maria and Hurricane Irma. So city approvals, and they were out without utilities for over 6 months. That was my point. They didn't have utilities, and Puerto Rico was affected. The Virgin Islands, the British Virgin Islands were affected. They had no utilities and no roofs. It was really a tragedy. And then the city has to approve the restoration as well. So the process to restoration, in my case, it was a 10-month process. The rebuilding actually happened faster than getting all of the items in place that needed to be done ahead of time. So some legal issues, sectors, and jobs. Where do you start? So someplace, like I said, you're going to start somewhere. You're probably not going to end up there, right? But you got to start somewhere. So if environmental issues are important to you, I highly recommend the emergency response. There's so much work that's needed done, and today in our world, there's so many disasters that have happened, and the earthquake in Turkey is devastating. And so there are emergency teams that are forming all over the world to go out and help with that disaster. City or county, you might have, I'm not sure if you have counties. This is how we divide them up. The counties in each state has counties. So we look at possibilities of working with the city council or the city officials, or even with the city government on taking care of a certain task. That's an area you can look at as well, or sector that you can look at. Construction, definitely construction. One of the professionals that I've worked with over the years is a construction expert witness. So he works for attorneys. That's all he does. He goes to court and works for attorneys. So he started out working construction, and he ended up running his own construction business. And then he created some type of a knob or button or something in the area of construction, and networked with attorneys. Then he became an expert witness working for attorneys, and started his own business as an expert witness. So that was his progression in where he ended up. Real estate attorneys are definitely needed. There's a lot of questions when it comes to coastal areas and natural disasters and how to handle those, as well as insurance. And again, coastal businesses, if the coast is something that you like, finding out about the coast is really done by living on the coast, right? And so there's, I would say there's the thought process of living on the coast is there's some people that are fearful and there's some people that have a lot of faith. And some people said, oh, well, we haven't had a storm in over 30 years. Well, you know, it does happen. And we are going to see storms a lot more and a lot more frequently than what the past 30 years has shown. I wanted to share this organization with you if anybody's interested. It's a worldwide organization and they take volunteers and they give you a place to stay and they give you your food and you go out and you volunteer with teams worldwide. I did this for 3 months in 2017 and 18. It was December, January, February. I helped out with All Hands and Hearts. I volunteered to do hurricane cleanup. And so if it's something that you like the idea of helping out and volunteering and getting involved and getting your hands dirty and finding out what it's all about on the ground, you learn a lot. And this organization is truly all hands and all heart. They are amazing. They've outlasted the Red Cross in many areas. When I was down there, they said, yeah, the Red Cross came down, handed out waters to everybody. And after about 3 weeks, they left. Oh, and by the way, they left all their cots and donated their cots to this organization for all the volunteers to sleep. And so it was a really rich, rewarding experience to volunteer and help out some of the devastation that happened down in the Caribbean. And on top of that, on our days off, we got to go see some really amazing beaches. So, you know, I'm going to share their website with you. I think I have that up here. Yes. Can you see the website here right now? They have a button that says volunteer, and then you can see all of the areas that they're helping. Turkey, they're taking applications. Let's see, volunteer. Okay, California. So this gives you an idea of some of the things they do. And California wildfire, Hurricane Ian, Mexico earthquake. This earthquake was devastating, and they're still cleaning it up. It's been years they're cleaning it up, so it can take a long time. The Ukraine crisis, the Nepal earthquake. So it's a wonderful organization I wanted to share with you. I really, like I said, had such a great experience getting on the ground, knowing what needs done in emergency response. And we actually got to help rebuild some schools so the kids could get back to school. As a matter of fact, that's another consideration, is that's one of the first things that needs done, because the kids have to get back into school so that the parents can start to rebuild their home, right? So where you start is not where you're going to finish. Some areas to consider, I shared this with you already, is a repeat emergency response. City, county, construction, real estate, insurance, or coastal businesses are all good areas where you can get into. And when you become apprentice and you work your apprenticeship in a specific field, then you could become attorney of that field. I have worked with a few people in real estate over the years, and after they worked a amount of time in real estate, they ended up going back to school, getting their law degree, and become real estate attorneys. So in order to practice in that area, it's very important to know that area and what's expected. So I'm going to say that emergency response is going to be increased at the city and local levels with what we're looking at in all the coastal areas. And it's going to be really important to have that plan in order and talking to all the right or forming a team to make sure all the steps are in place on how to handle it. So yeah, I just shared this. I wanted to show it to you again. So thank you for the invitation. My email is here, and I'd like to open up for any questions you might have about coastal issues or careers in this area of global warming that we're looking at. That's actually keeps you on the ground, keeps you out of the computer. Unfortunately, you won't be on the computer a lot when you're doing these types of things. At least one.
Ma'am, am I audible?
I can hear you.
Ma'am, my question is,
yes.
So my question is, we have calamity insurance, right, ma'am?
Okay, calamity insurance.
Ma'am?
And
so my question is, ma'am, we have calamity insurance because I've read it somewhere. We have an earthquake insurance.
okay. Oh, wonderful.
So we have all these insurances. My question is, are these insurances a thing? Because when a state is hit by a very serious hurricane or any other calamities, ma'am, even the insurance companies will lose money. That is for sure. So how can we claim insurance in that at that point of time? Because for this very reason only, we have force majeure clause and contract also. So how does this whole calamity insurance operate? This is my question, ma'am.
Okay, thank you very much. It's a very good question. So the way insurances work, you purchase a certain amount of coverage. A property owner will purchase a certain amount of coverage, and usually the insurance agents or insurance carriers will share with you what you're eligible for based on your property value, based on where the property is located. So, and again, lenders will not give a loan unless a property has insurance in the States. So a property does have to be insured. Most homes in the US have loans. And so, yes, they determine by your property value. And then to assess the damage after a disaster, it is another part where, yes, let's say you have coverage for $100,000, but then your insurance covers $100,000, but then the insurance comes out and determines you have $150,000 of damage. So your insurance won't cover all of it. It's important to look at those things and look at the insurance coverage and what exactly, and it should be in all the paperwork that upon purchase, when you purchase that insurance, should get the homeowner is provided that information. You're welcome. I worked with clients years ago, and her home was she had a burglary in her home, and what happened was somebody came in and they tore out all of this. Was in Phoenix, Arizona. It was her rental property, and she, excuse me, she all of a sudden she had no water. She couldn't figure out why she didn't have any water. She had a plumber come up and go up into the attic, and she had her access to the attic was outside in her garage where anybody could, and the garage was open. It was like a carport. Somebody had burglarized and stole her copper piping. So she didn't have any water because somebody stole her copper piping so they could go get money for the copper. And so she called her insurance and said, I'd like to report a burglary and this is what they stole. Insurance wouldn't cover that. They wouldn't cover it because it was very specific. And they wouldn't cover her to replace her pipes is what it was. So if she could prove that there was actually an item stolen or thing stolen, but they did not approve to repair her plumbing. Yeah. So they're very particular in their coverages. So these are really good questions to ask before purchasing.
Hello, ma'am.
Yes.
I'm Dr. Harita, ma'am. I was just talking to you through messages. I'm the
Oh,
one.
hi.
Hi, ma'am.
Thank you. Hi.
Actually, I just wanted to ask regarding the practice in your country, ma'am. Like, how much people are aware about these insurance schemes, or if anything happens due to a disaster, how much they are well aware about all these procedures as to how to claim all these things? Like, because sometimes in our country, we feel so many schemes are there, but when a disaster comes or when they lose their records or anything, some of them are not able to get their real claim because they are not aware, right? So what is the procedure that is adopted in especially in your country, where you give that awareness to people as to how they can proceed with?
Yes, it's very important. Thank you for asking the question. One of my neighbors, he was an individual was very distraught with the damage in his house, and he wasn't aware of how to do the claim. So there are people that aren't aware on how to do it. So the insurance company needs to provide the policy. There's actually a written policy and their contact information. They usually provide a phone number to file a claim. So it is the insurance company that will provide those things. And so if that's all provided, then then it could be just a phone call, right? And then the insurance takes care of organizing the adjuster. The insurance adjuster comes out to the house after the claim is made, and the insurance adjuster determines the damage. And like I said, that whole process can take about 3 weeks. And even longer if there's a catastrophe where, but if if there's not a catastrophe, if it's just something that happens to your house individually, an adjuster can come out within 4 or 5 days. So they determine the amount of damage. They report back to the insurance company and then determine how much you're actually able to receive from the claim.
Much, ma'am.
Thank you.
Myself, Aarti Ratna, faculty from Intellectual Property Department. I thank you for sparing your valuable time with us, ma'am. We thank you for sharing your own experience in coastal disasters and the mechanism to recoup each disaster. And the legal issues in emergency situations were explained by you, which makes us understand the issues revolving around the coastal disasters. We wholeheartedly thank on behalf of our university. We thank you so much for explaining so clearly about the sidelining the cost of development and all the coastal issues. You explained it so clearly, and definitely it's very helpful for all our students as well as the faculties. We thank you so much for sparing your time at this midnight of yours. We apologize for the saying also. Yeah, thank you so much.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
I thank Dr. Ingrid as well for making us understand the importance of decentralization of climate actions, which is a need of the hour. And she explained so beautifully about artificial intelligence, IoT, IIoT, as well as the blockchain technology, so that how we can come out from paper, from in the actual reality in the practice. So we thank both our speakers who joined us at this time. It's midnight for them. They took efforts to explain it so clearly for all our students, and they have really taken all the efforts to make us understand the importance of the shift. So I thank on behalf of our university, all the faculty members as well as the students. I thank every speaker, both the speakers, for joining us today. and making this event a grand success. Thank you so much. Let's proceed with the third speaker of today. Thank you.
ஸ்டார்ட் பண்ணலாமாமா?
So, am I audible? Sir, am I audible? So, can you hear me?
I think so. You'll have to unmute your mic, Deepa Lakshmi, and the idla ID la.
So, can you hear me? Actually, I'm not in mute.
I can hear you.
Okay. So, our next speaker for the day is Mr. Piyush Manush, who's a national environmentalist and a green entrepreneur. He started the Coop Forest in 2009, an initiative to create a forest on degraded and undulated land. What area of forest preservation? This effort shows the afforestation and proper management can create livelihoods as well as sustainable and eco-friendly way of living. The installation of rainwater harvesting structures in the Coop Forest are contributed the groundwater recharge of the surrounding areas, as well as benefiting several small farmers and planting of varied species of trees inside the reserve area, and which is also acts as an active carbon. Manush initiative portrays that impact of an individual efforts to the community and climate change combat. He also played a key role in various people's welfare activities and the revival of several water bodies in Salem and Dharmaburi districts. Over to you, sir.
ஏமா பேச ஆரம்பிக்கலாமா? போதுமா?
Yes, sir.
ஆல்ரெடி பயங்கரமான செஷன்ஸ் போயிட்டு இருக்கு உங்களுது. சரி, இப்போ இந்த செஷன் வந்து லாஸ்ட் செஷனாக இருக்கனால அந்த கதவை கொஞ்சம் க்ளோஸ் பண்ணி வைங்க. யாரும் வெளியே போடாதீங்க. பசங்களாம் எஸ்கேப் ஆகி போயிடுவாங்க. ஐ ஹோப் யூ ஹேவ் ஆல் ஹேட் யுவர் ரிஃப்ரெஷ்மெண்ட்ஸ் அண்ட் ஸ்நாக்ஸ் அண்ட் ஆல். ஏன்னா நான் சாலிடாக 1 மணி நேரம் சும்மா விட போகிறதில்ல. நல்லா வாய்ப்பு கிடைச்சிருக்கு. ஓகே, சி ஐ பீன் நான் பிறந்தது வளர்ந்ததெல்லாம் சேலத்தில் தான். எல்லாத்துக்கும் தமிழ் தெரியும் இல்லைங்க? எவ்ரிவன் நோஸ் தமிழ்? எனிவன் ஹூ டஸ் நாட் நோ தமிழ் ஹியர்? கை தூக்குறீங்களா? ஓகே, ஸோ ஐ அஸ்யூம் எவ்ரிவன் நோஸ் தமிழ் ஹியர். ஸோ நான் மிக்ஸ் பண்ணி பேசிடுறேன் எது ஒன்று. ஓகே, ஸோ நான் வந்து என்னோட ஃபர்ஸ்ட் இன்ட்ரொடக்ஷன் வந்து ஐ எம் அன் accused in the eyes of law. I have had more than 17 cases against me, and இப்போ 16 cases தான் இருக்கு. இப்போ ஒரே ஒரு கேஸ் தான் பெண்டிங்ல இருக்கு. மீதி எல்லாம் நானே வாதாடி ஜெயிச்சு விடுதலை வாங்கி வந்துட்டேன். இப்போ மேஜரா இந்த கேசஸ் எல்லாம் எதுக்காக போடப்பட்டதுன்னா, என் மேல நான் சேலத்தில் இருக்கேன். சேலத்துக்கு ஒரு இன்டர்நேஷனல் கான்ஃபரன்ஸ்க்கு என்ன சம்பந்தம் இருக்குன்னா, we have international criminals here working in Salem. உலக மகான் அயோக்கிய பசங்கள்லாம் இங்கே வேலை செய்கிறாங்க. வேதாந்தா கம்பெனி கேள்விப்பட்டிருப்பீங்க நீங்கள்லாம். வேதாந்தா has been mining illegally in Kolli Hills and Erkard Hills for say from between 96 to 2008. 96லேருந்து 2008 வரைக்கும் the mining was so severe, was so terrific that it is a source of 5 rivers. Sherrine Hills is source of 5 rivers. Kolli Hills is source of one mighty river, Souza நதின்ட்டு. ஸோ இந்த 4 ஆத்து வந்து இதில் போய் காவேரியில் போய் சேர்ந்துக்கும். ஸோ இங்கேருந்து பாக்ஸைட் எடுப்பான் மனுஷன், திருடுறான். பாக்ஸைட் திருடிட்டு மேட்டூர் கொண்டு போய் அந்த பாக்ஸைட்லேருந்து அலுமினியம் எடுத்து அந்த ரெட் மட்டுன்ட்டு ஒரு கெமிக்கல் ரெசிடியூ வரும். அந்த கெமிக்கல் ரெசிடியூ எடுத்து எங்கள் காவேரி ஆற்றுலேயே ஓரமாகவே கொட்டிடுவாங்க. கொட்டிகிட்டு இருந்தான், இப்படி தான் பண்ணிகிட்டு இருந்தான். ஸோ நான் ரொம்ப மரியாதைலாம் கொடுத்து பேச முடியாது. ஒரு கார்பரேட் கிரிமினலுக்கெல்லாம் மரியாதை கொடுக்க முடியாது. ஸோ அதை எதிர்பார்க்காதீங்க. ஸோ இந்த லாங்குவேஜ் நீங்கள்லாம் கொஞ்சம் பேர் பண்ணிக்கோங்க. ஸோ நான் 2008 we filed luckily there was a case filed by the company against themselves. ஏன்னா கோர்ட் இப்போ அதிகமாகவே யூஸ் பண்ணுறது எதுக்குன்னா, இல்லீகாலிட்டி லீகல் ஆக்கிறதுக்கு தான் கோர்ட்ஸ் அதிகமாக யூஸ் பண்ணுறாங்க. ஸோ அந்த டைமில் ஐ ஹாவ் எங்கள் பியூட்டிஃபுல் லாயர் டீம் இருக்காங்க சென்னையில், PUCL சொல்லி நாகசைலா மேடம். அந்த கேஸ் பற்றி கேள்விப்பட்டு எனக்கு ஃபோன் பண்ணாங்க. பியூஷ் லெட் இஸ் இம்ப்ளீட் இன் திஸ் கேஸ்ன்னு சொன்னாங்க. நாங்கள் கேஸில் இம்ப்ளீட் ஆனோம். இம்ப்ளீட் ஆகி எங்கிட்ட ஒரே வேலை தான் கொடுத்தாங்க, ஆர்டிஐ ஃபைல் பண்ணி டாக்குமெண்ட்ஸ் வெளியிடுன்ட்டு. நான் நாமக்கல் பொல்யூஷன் கண்ட்ரோல் போர்டில் போய் ஆர்டிஐ ஃபைல் பண்ணேன். எனக்கு ஆர்டிஐ பதில் கொடுக்கல, வெயிட் பண்ண சொன்னார். ஸோ நான் அந்த அலுவலகத்திலேயே வெயிட் பண்ணிக்கிட்டேன். பாய் அண்டா குண்டாலாம் எடுத்துகிட்டு போய் அங்கேயே உட்காந்துட்டேன். நான் இங்கேயே வெயிட் பண்ணுறேன் சார், நீங்கள் டாக்குமெண்ட்ஸ் கொடுக்குற வரைக்கும் சொல்லிட்டு. ஸோ ஒரு நாள் போலீஸை கூப்பிட்டாரு. சார் நான் ஒன்றுமே பண்ணல சார், இங்கே உட்காந்துருக்கேன், வெயிட் பண்ண சொல்கிறாரு, டெய்லி வருவேன், காலையில் சாயந்தரம் எடுத்துட்டு போயிடுவேன்னு சொன்னேன். ஸோ அது கொஞ்சம் ரொம்ப சீன் கிரியேட் ஆகிட்டு இருக்குன்னு டாக்குமெண்ட்ஸ் கையில் கொடுத்தாங்க. அந்த டாக்குமெண்ட்ஸ் கையில் கொடுத்ததுல ஒன் லெட்டர் சேட் தட் எனக்கு இந்த பர்மிஷன் வேணும். சேட்டு சொல்றாரு. இந்த சேட் யாருன்னா அனில் அகர்வால். இவர் எங்க உட்காந்துருக்காருன்னா லண்டன் ஸ்டாக் எக்ஸ்சேஞ்சில் வேதாந்தா லிஸ்ட் பண்ணியிருக்காரு. அந்த லண்டன் ஸ்டாக் எக்ஸ்சேஞ்சில் லிஸ்ட் பண்ண வேதாந்தா என்ன சொல்லுதுன்னா, தமிழ்நாடு கவர்மெண்ட் கிட்ட சொல்லுது, இந்த மாதிரி எனக்கு இந்த பர்மிஷன் வேணும், 1 2 3 4 5 6 டிபார்ட்மெண்ட் பர்மிஷன் வேணும், என்கிட்ட ஒண்ணுமே இல்லை, ஆனா என்ன மைனிங் பண்ண விடு, நான் பாட்டுக்கு கொள்ள அடிச்சிட்டு இருக்கேன், நான் கொள்ள அடிச்சுட்டே இருக்கேன், மைனிங் பண்றேன்னு சொல்லியிருந்தாரு. அந்த கொள்ள அடிக்கிற வார்த்தை சொல்ல, லெட் மீ பி வெரி ஸ்பெசிஃபிக் ஹியர். ஸோ இந்த லெட்டர் கையில் கிடைச்ச உடனே இட் வாஸ் லைக் a boon for us. This letter was written in 2002. RTI was bought in 2006. It was such a huge act that it has opened the Pandora box for corporates. So அந்த ஒரு லெட்டர் வச்சு we won the case. He gave an undertaking in the court that he will not mine hereafter. So 96 to 2008, the mining was stopped. 96 to 2008, வரைக்கும் மைனிங் பண்ணிட்டு இருந்த கம்பெனி, 12 years கொள்ளடிச்ச கம்பெனி. He gave an undertaking, நான் இல்லீகலாக மைன் பண்ணியிருக்கேன், நிறுத்திட்டு அவன் போயிட்டான். பட் இது வரைக்கும் பனிஷ்மெண்ட் கிடைக்கல. The sad part is that ஒரு சின்ன திருடனை வந்து நான் இனிமேல் திருட மாட்டேன் சொல்லி ஒரு அண்டர்டேக்கிங் கொடுத்தா நம்ம விட்டுற மாட்டோம். பட் அன்ஃபார்ச்சுனேட்லி வேதாந்தா has got away with it. கொஞ்சம் சோம்பேறித்தனம் கூட இருக்கு இதில். பிகாஸ் நாமக்கல் நான் கோர்ட்டில் போய் என்னால் வாதாட முடியல. நாமக்கல் கோர்ட்டுக்கு போகணும், ஜூரிடிக்ஷன் நாமக்கல் இருக்கு. பட் ஹோப்ஃபுல்லி ஒன் டே ஜஸ்டிஸ் வில் பி சர்வ். தி சேம் வேதாந்தா வாஸ் ரன்னிங் அ ஃபேக்டரி இன் ஸ்டெர்லைட். ஸ்டெர்லைட்டில் 14 பேர் சுட்ட கேஸில் இது வரைக்குமே ஒருத்தருமே அரெஸ்ட் ஆகல. ஸோ இங்கே என்விரான்மெண்ட் வயலேஷன், ஹியூமன் ரைட் வயலேஷன், ஜெனோசைடு வரைக்கும் நம்ம வார்த்தை யூஸ் பண்ணாலும் தப்பு கிடையாது. ஸோ ஆஸ் லாயர்ஸ் யூ பீப்புள் ஹேவ் அ வெரி இம்பார்ட்டன்ட் ரோல் டு பிளே in stopping the loot of this country. Now, how do we do it? What organs are there available with us? The first thing that I do whenever there's a fight in front of me, இப்போ கஞ்சமலைன்ட்டு ஒரு மலை இருக்கு. 2009ல மைனிங்காக அப்ளிகேஷன் போட்டிருந்தாங்க. 6000 ஏக்கர் எடுக்கணும், 2000 ஏக்கர் 3 கம்பெனி பிரிச்சிருச்சு அவங்கக்குள்ளேயே. பீப்புள் மொபிலைஸ் பண்ணேன், கலெக்டரேட்டை லாக் பண்ணேன், டிஎஃப் ஆஃபீஸ் ஒரு நாள் லாக் பண்ணியிருந்தேன். 1700 ஆர்டி அப்ளிகேஷன்ஸ் ஒரே நாளில் போட்டோம். அரசாங்கம் அன்னைக்கு பயந்துருச்சு, பின் வாங்கிடுச்சு. டாக்குமெண்ட்ஸ் கையில் வந்ததில் இல்லீகாலிட்டி ப்ரூவ் ஆச்சு. ஸோ கோர்ட் வரைக்கும் போக தேவையில்லை, பீப்புள் மூவ்மெண்ட்லேயே நாங்கள் அதை நிறுத்திட்டோம். திருவண்ணாமலையில் அப்படியே கவுத்திமலை வேடிப்பன் மலையை காப்பாற்றணும். த சேம் கம்பெனி வாண்டட் டு மைன் தென் திருவண்ணாமலை, we were able to stop it. So first thing is people's movement. So we mobilize people, we go with people, speak facts with them. People are not fools, people make their choices and we are able to stop projects. 8 வழி சாலைக்கும் ரொம்ப ஸ்ட்ராங்கான ப்ராஜெக்ட் ரைஸ் பண்ணோம். பட் நிறைய அமைப்புக்கு வந்து ஒரு துடிப்பு இருக்கு, டக்குன்னு ஹைகோர்ட் போயிடுறாங்க. Then we also have to run behind the high courts. Then ஹைகோர்ட்ல போய் கேஸை போட்டுறாங்க, அப்புறம் நம்மளும் அப்புறம் கட்ட தூக்கிட்டு போக வேண்டியதா இருக்கு. பட் we have won these cases. நாங்கள் இது வரைக்கும் ரொம்ப சக்சஸ்ஃபுல்லா இருந்திருக்கோம். இது வரைக்கும் கேஸை தோக்கல. லக்கிலி மேபி கேசஸ் ஆர் பெண்டிங், பட் இது வரைக்கும் தோக்கல. நவ் கமிங் டு ஐ எம் ஃப்ரம் சேலம். நான் வந்து சென்னைக்காரங்கிட்ட வந்து கெஞ்சிட்டு இருக்க முடியாது, ஐயா எனக்காக கேஸ் எடுங்க ஐயா ஹைகோர்ட்டுக்கு நான்லாம் வர முடியாது. இங்க பாருங்க, நீங்க இந்த செமினாருக்கே கூப்பிட்டீங்க, நான் போய் பேசிட்டு இன்னைக்கு வராமல் போயிட்டேன், கால் உடஞ்சு போச்சுன்னு போய் பேசி உட்காந்துட்டேன். பட் நிஜமா காலில் வலி இருந்ததுங்க, அவ்வளோ இல்லை, நிஜமா காலில் கொஞ்சம் ஸ்ப்ரெயினாக இருந்தது. பட் த திங் இஸ் தட் வெரி இம்பார்ட்டன்ட்லி லோக்கல் ஜுடிஷியரி ஹேஸ் டு பி வெரி ஆக்டிவ். நவ் த லோக்கல் ஜுடிஷியரியில் டிஸ்ட்ரிக்ட் செஷன்ஸ் ஜட்ஜ் இருக்காங்க, நூற்றுக்கணக்கான ஜட்ஜஸ் இருக்காங்க, நூற்றுக்கணக்கு இவ்வளோ பெரிய இன்ஃப்ராஸ்ட்ரக்சர் இருக்கு. இந்த என்டையர் இன்ஃப்ராஸ்ட்ரக்சர் எதுக்காக யூஸ் ஆகப்படுதுன்னா, ஆஸ் அன் அக்யூஸ்ட் இன் செவரல் கேசஸ், நான் இந்த கோர்ட்டெல்லாம் பார்க்கும்போது ஒரு போலீஸ் யந்திரம் இந்த கோர்ட்டை யூஸ் பண்ணி நம்மளை டார்ச்சர் பண்ணிட்டு இருக்காங்களே. பொய் வழக்கு எப்படி போடுவாங்கன்னா, இவன் ரொம்ப இன்ட்ரெஸ்டிங்கான வழக்கெல்லாம் போட்டிருக்காங்க. ஒரு வழக்கு என்ன போட்டிருந்தாங்கன்னா, ஒரு எஃப்ஐஆர் சொல்றேன், நான் ஃபேஸ்புக்கில் ஒரு போஸ்ட் போட்டிருந்தேன். சீக்கிங் அண்ட் கேம்பெயினர், கேர்ஃபுல்லாக கேளுங்க, சீக்கிங் ஒன் கேம்பெயினர் ஃபார் 15,000 rupees போட்டிருந்தேன். ஃபார் 15,000 rupees டு ஃபைல் RTIs அண்ட் டூ பேப்பர் ஒர்க் அண்ட் கேம்பெயின் அகேன்ஸ்ட் 8 வழி சாலை, ஏர்போர்ட் எக்ஸ்பென்ஷன் எக்ஸெட்ரா. இவ்வளோதான் என்னோட ஃபேஸ்புக் போஸ்டே. இந்த போஸ்ட் ஒரு பிஜேபிக்காரன் எடுத்துட்டு போய் கம்ப்ளைண்ட் பண்ணி எஃப்ஐஆர் என்ன போட்டிருக்காங்கன்னா, நான் நாக்ஸ்லைட்டு 15,000 ரூபாய்க்கு நாக்ஸ்லைட்ஸை செலக்ட் பண்ணிட்டு இருக்கேன், வேலை கொடுத்துட்டு இருக்கேன் அப்படின்ட்டு ஒரு எஃப்ஐஆர் ஃபைல் பண்ணி வச்சிருந்தாங்க. இந்த எஃப்ஐஆர் எனக்கு எப்போ தெரிஞ்சதுன்னா 3 வருஷம் கழிச்சு when I was arrested in another case, சிஏஏ கேஸ்ல என்ன அரெஸ்ட் பண்ணியிருந்தாங்க. அப்போ இந்த மாதிரி நம்ம மேல ஒரு எஃப்ஐஆர் இருக்கு, ஒரு பிரிசன் வாரண்ட் வந்து எடுத்துட்டு வந்துட்டு இருந்தாரு ஜெயிலுக்கு போலீஸ் சைட்ல இருந்து. அதுக்குள்ள நான் ஜெயில இருந்து வெளியே வந்துட்டேன், வீட்டுக்கு வந்துட்டேன். எனிவே ஆல் said and done, our courts, our police locally are being used to oppress people, file false cases and make it into a mechanism which drags on. இப்போ எனக்கு கொஞ்சம் கோர்ட்ல இப்போ பழக்கம் ஆயிடுச்சு. கோவிட் வந்துச்சு இல்லைங்க, கோவிட்ல நான் மிஸ் பண்ணது ஒரே ஒரு விஷயம் என்னன்னா கோர்ட்டுக்கு போறது. எனக்கு அப்புறம் கோர்ட் இல்லாம என்னால ஒரு மாதிரி ஆயிடுச்சு எனக்கு. ஸோ சும்மாவே கோர்ட் மூடி இருக்கும்போது நான் அப்படியே உள்ள போயிட்டு அப்படியே சேர் பெஞ்சு கிஞ்செல்லாம் அப்படியே பார்த்துட்டு தொட்டுட்டு வந்துட்டு இருப்பேன். அப்போ எனக்கு புரிஞ்சது நம்ம கோர்ட் விடக்கூடாது. இப்போ நம்ம மேல கேஸ் எல்லாம் முடிஞ்சு போச்சு, இப்போ ஒரு கேஸ் தான் பெண்டிங் இருக்கு. ஸோ இப்போ நான் கேஸ் போட ஆரம்பிச்சிட்டேன் அரசாங்கத்து மேல, யூசிங் த லோக்கல் ஜுடிஷியரி, using local courts. I am the private complainant in almost 5 cases now. JM1, JM2, JM3, JM4, JM5. 5 கோர்ட்லயும் கேஸ் போட்டு வச்சிருக்கேன். கேசஸ் ரொம்ப இன்ட்ரெஸ்டிங்கா போயிட்டு இருக்கு. 2 கேஸ் முக்கியமா மரம் வெட்டுறதுக்காக இருக்கு. அங்க பின்னாடி ஒரு கும்பல் அப்படியே டான்ஸ் ஆடிக்கிட்டு இருக்கு. கொஞ்சம் அடக்கி உட்கார சொல்லுங்களேன் பார்க்கலாம். டேய் சரிங்க கேளுங்க, இது வெரி இன்ட்ரெஸ்டிங் கேஸ். 2020ல 3/7/2020ல மரத்தை வெட்டுறாங்க ஒரு ஊர்ல. ஒரு 20 மரத்தை வெட்டுறாங்க. மரத்தை வெட்டுறதுப்போ நான் அங்கே போகிறேன். ஏன்ப்பா மரத்தை வெட்டுறீங்க கேட்குறேன். பர்மிஷன் இல்லை, எதுவுமே இல்லை. அங்கேருந்து போகிறேன், போலீஸ் ஸ்டேஷன் போய் ஒரு சிஎஸ்ஆர் காப்பி என்கிட்ட கொடுத்துட்றாங்க. லக்கிலி ஐ காட் அ சிஎஸ்ஆர் காப்பி. கொஞ்சம் நாளில் அங்கே இருக்கிற லோக்கல் அரசியல்வாதிகள்லாம் மிரட்டுறாங்க, ஃபேஸ்புக்கில் வராங்க, கச்சா புச்சான்னு திட்டுறாங்க, ட்ரால் பண்ணுறாங்க. ஏசி போலீஸை வந்து கொஞ்சம் அப்படியே சமாளிச்சிடுறாங்க. நானும் வேற வேற வேலையில் மறந்துட்டேன். 2022ல ஐ ஃபைல்ட் அன் ஆர்டிஐ. ஒரு ஆர்டிஐ ஃபைல் பண்ணி கேட்டேன், ஐயா என்னோட 2020ல நான் போட்ட கேஸ் என்ன ஆச்சு, இதுக்கு என்ன பண்ணீங்கன்னு கேட்குறேன். எனக்கு என்ன பதில் கொடுக்குறாருன்னா, நீ 2020ல மரத்தை வெட்டின கேஸ் நீ கொடுத்த, அந்த 2020ல மரத்தை வெட்டினது அந்த லைவான மரத்தை 2021 டிசம்பர்ல ஆர்டிஓ ஏலம் விட்டுருக்காரு. புரிஞ்சுதாங்க? மரம் வெட்டியாச்சு 2020ல, அந்த வெட்டின மரத்தை ஆர்டிஓ லைவா பார்த்தாராம். 2021 டிசம்பர்ல ஏலத்துக்கு விட்டுருக்காராம். நேரா ஜட்ஜு கிட்ட எடுத்துட்டு போனேன் கேஸ. ஆனா அக்யூஸ்டா இன்ஸ்பெக்டரும் கமிஷனர் ஆஃப் போலீஸ் மட்டும் தான் வச்சிருக்கேன். ஸோ இப்போ ரொம்ப பியூட்டிஃபுல்லான ஒரு ஜுடிஷியரி டீம் இங்க இருக்கு, சேலத்தில் உட்காந்துருக்கு. ஸோ JM2 ஹேஸ் கிவன் மீ ரிட்டர்ன் ஆர்டர்ஸ் சேயிங் தட், நான் கட்டிங் தான் வச்சிருக்கேன், பக்கத்துலேயே காட்டுறேன். டைப் பண்ணி எனக்கு ஆர்டர்ஸ் கொடுத்துருக்காரு. என்ன சொல்லியிருக்காருன்னா, ஏன் கலெக்டர் ஆர்டிஓலாம் எங்க போவாரு, எப்படி இன்ஸ்பெக்டர் கமிஷனர் மட்டும் லிஸ்ட் பண்ணி வச்சிருக்கலான்ட்டு கட்ட ரிட்டர்ன் கொடுத்துருக்காரு. இப்போ திருப்பி இந்த அக்யூஸ்ட்ல ஆர்டிஓ, கலெக்டர், தாசில்தார் எல்லாம் சேர்த்து போய் கொடுக்க போறேன். ஜெயில் சூப்பர்டென்ட் வந்து 2016ல நான் உள்ள வந்து போட்டு அடிக்கிறாரு. 20 பேர் சேர்ந்து நம்மளை முத்துறாரு ஜெயிலுக்குள்ள. உள்ள போன உடனே அடி விழுவுது நம்மளுக்கு. 20 பேர் சேர்ந்து அடிச்சதுல காலெல்லாம் வீங்கி இப்படியே பம்பர மாதிரி ஆயிடுச்சு. தூக்கி போட்டு செல்ல போட்டாங்க. நம்ம ஒன்றும் முடியல. ஒரு 7 days கழிச்சு மை வைஃப் ஸ்போக் வெரி ஸ்ட்ராங்லி அபவுட் இட் அவுட் சைட் வேர்ல்டு கிட்ட பேசினாங்க. மீடியா கவர்டு தி ஸ்டோரி. ஏதோ ஒரு உயிர் காப்பாற்றி வெளியே வந்துட்டேன். இன்னும் 7 நாள்ல பெயில் கடிச்சு 15 நாள் உள்ள இருந்தேன். இந்த கஸ்டோடியல் டார்ச்சர் கேஸ்ல ஐ ஃபைல்ட் கேஸ் இந்த லோக்கல் ஜுடிஷியல் கோர்ட் நம்பர் 3ல போய் இந்த மாதிரி எனக்கு அடிச்சாங்க, நான் போலீஸ்ல கம்ப்ளைண்ட் பண்ணேன், இது வரைக்கும் போலீஸ் கம்ப்ளைண்ட் எடுக்கல, கைண்ட்லி டேக் திஸ் கேஸ் அப்னு சொல்லி ஹானரபிள் கோர்ட் சண்முகப்பிரியா மேம் டுக் அப் த கேஸ். அதுல சிசிடிவி ஃபுட்டேஜ் கால் ஃபார் பண்ணோம். சிசிடிவி ஃபுட்டேஜ்க்கு தனியா நீதிபதி வந்து தனியா கேஸ் நடத்தி அந்த எவிடன்ஸ் ஆக்ட்ல தீர்ப்பு என் பக்கம் ஆர்டர்ஸ் கொடுத்து சிசிடிவி ஃபுட்டேஜை ஹேண்ட் ஓவர் பண்ணி வச்சிருக்காங்க. அந்த சிசிடிவி ஃபுட்டேஜ் கோர்ட்ல சப்மிட் ஆயிடுச்சு. அதுக்கப்புறம் செவரல் எவிடன்சஸ் எல்லாம் ஏற அந்த சூப்பரிண்டென்ட் என் காலில் உளுந்து, என் வைஃபோட காலில் உளுந்து மன்னிப்பு கேட்டு அதை நான் ரெக்கார்ட் பண்ணி, கண்டிப்பா மன்னிக்க முடியாது, ஜஸ்டிஸ் ஹேஸ் டு பி சர்வ்ட். கேஸ் இது வரைக்கும் நடந்துட்டு இருக்கு. இப்போ செக்ஷன் 197 sanction for prosecutionல orders are awaited in this case. இந்த மாதிரி மைனிங் கேஸா இருக்கட்டும், ட்ரீ ஃபெல்லிங் கேஸா இருக்கட்டும், சாலிட் வேஸ்ட் மேனேஜ்மெண்ட் கேஸா இருக்கட்டும், see the whole of the state, the whole of the country is affected by the solid waste management problem. குப்பையை கொட்டுறாங்க, அது பாட்டுக்கு மலை மேலே ஏறிடுது. எரிக்கிறாங்கன்னா சுவாசிச்சுனா நம்மளுக்கு கேன்சர் வந்துடுது. அது எரிக்கலனா அது பூமிக்குள்ள போய் தண்ணியை நாசம் பண்ணிடுது. அதே தண்ணியை தான் குடிக்கணும். இப்போ சடனா வருது 1000 children died in UP. All the mothers milk had mercury in it, heavy metals இருந்தது. So 1100 children died அப்படின்னு நியூஸ் பார்த்தோம். இப்போ just 1 week back. Every drop of drinking water that you and me are drinking is coming from ditch or some gutter. எங்க சேலத்துல திருநூத்தார் ரிவர் இருக்கு, அந்த தண்ணி எடுத்து நாங்க காவேரியில சேர்த்துறோம். அந்த காவேரி தண்ணியை ஈரோடுகாரன் குடிக்கிறான். சாரி, டவுன் ஸ்ட்ரீம் போகுது இப்படி. ஆமா, ஈரோடு தான். ஈரோடு பவானிக்கு போகுது, ஈரோடுக்கு போகுது, நாமக்கல் போகுது, அப்படி போய் அவன் குடிச்சிட்டு இருக்கான் அந்த தண்ணியை. எங்களுக்கு தர்மபுரிக்காரன் போடுற டிச்சி தண்ணி நாங்க குடிச்சிட்டு இருக்கோம், பெங்களூர்காரன் போடுற டிச்சி தண்ணியை நாங்க குடிச்சிட்டு இருக்கோம் சேலத்துல. ஸோ எவ்ரி ஒன் இஸ் ட்ரிங்கிங் ஈச் அதர்ஸ் ஷிட். ரொம்ப ஓப்பனா ஃப்ராங்கா சொல்லணும்னா, ஹவு டஸ் திஸ் ஸ்டாப்? ஹவு டஸ் திஸ் எண்ட்? ஜஸ்டிஸ் ஹேஸ் டு பி சர்வ்டு. ஒரு இன்ஜஸ்டிஸ் நடந்துட்டு இருக்க நேச்சருக்கு எதிர்த்து ஜஸ்டிஸ் சர்வ் ஆகாம பீஸ் கிடைக்காது. பீஸ் இல்லைன்னா ஜாய் இல்லை. ஐ வாண்ட் டு லிவ் வெரி ஹாப்பிலி. நான் தண்ணி குடிக்கிறேன், நான் சுவாசிக்கிறேன், நான் அதுக்கு நன்றி சொல்லணும், கடமைப்பட்டிருக்கேன். நீங்களும் நன்றி சொல்லணும்ட்டு கடமைப்பட்டிருப்பீங்கன்னு நினைக்கிறேன். பட் அன்ஃபார்ச்சுனேட்லி வி டோன்ட் சே தேங்க்ஸ் டு வாட்டர் அண்ட் ஏர். வி டேக் இட் ஜஸ்ட் ஃபார் கிராண்டட். குவான்டிட்டி அவைலபிளாக இருந்தால் போதும் நினச்சிட்டு இருக்கோம். அதோட குவாலிட்டி, இன்னரண்ட் குவாலிட்டி டிட்டர்மைன்ஸ் த குவாலிட்டி ஆஃப் மை லைஃப். The quality of water will determine your economy, will determine agriculture, will determine its productivity. So intrinsically நீங்க இதுல வந்தே ஆகணும். Environmental law சீரியஸா எடுத்தாகணும். And you'll have to make it simpler for people to take up the fight against and very greedy bureaucratic mechanism which is sitting there, which is completely stupid. I will clarify why I use the word stupid. For 50 years, 50 வருஷமா ஒரு அம்மாப்பேட்டை ஏரின்ட்டு ஒரு ஏரியை குப்பை கொட்டிட்டு இருந்தாங்க. அரசாங்கமே அம்மாப்பேட்டை ஏரி சொல்லி சேலத்துல ஒரு பாப்புலேட்டட் ஏரியாவில் இருக்கிற ஒரு ஏரியில குப்பை கொட்டிட்டு இருந்தாங்க. அந்த பக்கம் நாத்தனும் அந்த நாத்தம் அடிக்கும். மக்கள் அங்க போனாங்கன்னா women who are pregnant have fainted there with that smell. 3 மண்டபம், கல்யாண மண்டபம் அந்த பக்கம் இருந்தது. They closed the மண்டபம் because no one was organizing an event there. எந்த கல்யாணம் நடத்த மாட்டாங்க, ஏன்னா அவ்வளோ நாத்த அடிச்ச ஏரி அது. ஒரே வருஷத்துல, children you will have to clap your hands for this, others I will not speak. ஒரே வருஷத்துல I cleaned up the lake. I mean Salem Citizens Forum நாங்க க்ளீன் பண்ணோம். 1000 பேர் சண்டே இறங்கணும், ஏரியை சுத்தம் பண்ணோம். 2வது வருஷம் 50,000 பறவைங்க வந்துருச்சாங்க. 12,000 trees were planted. இப்போ 5-6 years அந்த ஏரியா, பியூட்டிஃபுல்லான ஏரியா, நாங்க ஃபேஸ்புக்ல போஸ்ட் போடுவோம். It became a huge spot. பார்க் ஆயிடுச்சு. 1000 மக்கள் தினைக்கு வாக்கிங் வராங்க. சாட்டர்டே சண்டே ஆனா பெருங்கூட்டம் லேக்ல. பியூட்டிஃபுல்லி மெயின்டைன் லேக். ஸ்மார்ட் சிட்டி ப்ராஜெக்ட்ல அரசாங்கம் ஏரியா எடுத்துச்சு. 2018 EPS ஓட ஆட்சி. சடங்கு எடுத்துக்கிட்டேன் EPS கிட்ட. லோக்கல் மினிஸ்டர்ல லோக்கல் CM ஆயிட்டாரு. அவருக்கு ஈகோ ஏறிடுச்சு, எனக்கு ஈகோ ஏறிடுச்சு, சண்டை முத்திக்குச்சு. ஏரியா ஸ்மார்ட் சிட்டி ப்ராஜெக்ட்ல 30 கோடிக்கு எடுக்கிறாரு. 30 crores ஏரி எடுத்து இன்னைக்கு 5 வருஷம் ஆச்சுங்க. ஏரியை கெடுத்து குட்டிச்சோர் ஆக்கிட்டாங்க. எப்படின்னு சொல்றேன், இன்லெட் வாட்டரை ட்ரெயின் பண்ணி இதுல டிச்சி தண்ணி கலக்குதுன்ட்டு அவுட்லெட் வெளியே போய் 4 கிலோமீட்டர் தூரம் டவுன் ஸ்ட்ரீம்ல ஷிட்டு கூட கலந்து, லிட்டரலா சொல்றேன், ஷிட்னா அண்டர் கிரவுண்ட் ட்ரைனேஜ் ஸ்கீமோட தண்ணியில கலந்து, அண்டர் கிரவுண்ட் ட்ரைனேஜ் ஸ்கீமுக்காக போட்ட ட்ரீட்மெண்ட் பிளான்ட்ல அந்த தண்ணியை எடுத்துட்டு போய் மிக்ஸ் பண்ணி அது ஒரு குலுக்கி அதுல இருந்து பம்ப் பண்ணி திருப்பி ஏரி கொடுக்க போறாங்களாம். இன்னும் அவுட்லெட் சேனலே கட்டல. 5 வருஷம் ஆச்சு. So such a disturbing kind of a scenario இது. இதோட ஒரு பெரிய டிஸ்டர்பன்ஸான ஒரு சினேரியோ எதுவுமே இருக்காது. வேர் stupidity at its best. Thousands of crores have come to Salem. Thousands of crores have gone down the drain. Underground drainage system is completely collapsed here. ஆரம்பிச்சதுல இருந்தே அது நாசமா போச்சு. எவ்வளோ சிமெண்ட், எவ்வளோ கான்கிரீட் கொட்டியிருக்காங்க எங்க தலை மேல எங்களுக்கு தான் தெரியும். தார் ரோடு, எண்ட் டு எண்ட் தார் ரோடு போடுறாங்க. சாலிட் வேஸ்ட் மேன் சிஸ்டம் பாடு இல்லை. ஒரு ஏரியை மெயின்டைன் பண்ண வக்கில்ல அரசாங்கத்துக்கு. ரிவர் பல்யூட்டடா ஃப்ளோ ஆயிட்டு இருக்கு. அப்போ இந்த பியூரோக்ரஸியை ஸ்டூபிட் சொல்லாம என்னால வேற எந்த வார்த்தையும் என்னால அவங்களுக்காக யூஸ் பண்றதுக்கு எனக்கு பெரிய தயக்கமா இருக்கு. பட் நவ் தே ஆர் ஆல்சோ கிரிமினல். Now coming back to this, as an emotional citizen, I use the word stupid. You people will have to use the word accused. You people have to array them accused in the court and prove that they are accused and get them convicted, and only then will this country prosper anymore. So it is very important that local judiciary is strengthened. Local judiciary நிறைய powers கொடுக்கணும். Section 197 hangs like a Damascus sword. நேத்து எனக்கு ஒரு மேஜிஸ்ட்ரேட் ஒரு ஆர்டர் போட்டிருக்காரு. I filed a case against the BJP state president Mr. Annamalai for disrupting peace, for spreading canards about the Supreme Court. சுப்ரீம் கோர்ட் மேல ஒரு இது பண்ணார் அவரு. இந்த மாதிரி தீபாவளி பட்டாசு வெடிக்கிறதெல்லாம் இந்து கலாச்சாரம், 2000 வருஷம் கலாச்சாரம், அதை கெடுக்கிறதுக்காகவே கிறிஸ்டியன் மிஷனரி என்ஜிஓஸ் ஃபண்டிங் போட்டு கேஸ்ல பெட்டிஷன் மேல பெட்டிஷன் போடுறாங்க சுப்ரீம் கோர்ட்ல. நான் கூகுள் பண்ணி டைப் பண்ணி பார்த்தேன். நீங்க இப்போ கூகுள் கையில வச்சிருந்தா டைப் பண்ணலாம். அந்த தீபாவளி பட்டாசு வெடிக்கிற கேஸ் வந்து எடுத்துட்டு இருக்கிறவரு அர்ஜுன் கோபால். Arjun Gopaloட father Shankara Gopal Narayanan. Shankara Gopal Narayanan is the some additional Solicitor General. அவர் கேஸ் போட்டதுக்கு கிறிஸ்டியன் மிஷனரி மேல தலை மேல கட்டிட்டாரு. போலீஸ் மேல கம்ப்ளைண்ட் கொடுத்தேன், போலீஸ் கிட்ட கம்ப்ளைண்ட் கொடுத்தேன், போலீஸ் கம்ப்ளைண்ட் எடுக்கல. நேரா அந்த கம்ப்ளைண்ட் எடுத்துட்டு போயிட்டு நான் JM4ல போய் கொடுத்துட்டேன். JM4ல கொடுத்த உடனே the court has taken up the case, but section 120 criminal conspiracy-க்கு 196 sanction is important to be taken from the collector. So இன்னைக்கு ரெஜிஸ்டர் வால்ல கலெக்டருக்கு ஒரு தபால் போகுது to seek sanction to prosecute people who are causing hatred amongst communities under section 505, 153 and section 120. So this is the best. I hope as citizens we are able to use the local judiciary, the entire local judiciary infrastructure use panni, we are able to take it forward, we are able to take it and take it to the logical end. Yes, so any questions you have about the presentation, please, this floor is open for questioning now.
Sir.
No questions, children?
Sir, can you hear us, sir?
I can hear you now.
Okay. You are not visible, sir. கொஞ்சம் கேமரா ஆன் பண்ணி திருப்பி ஆஃப் பண்ணி ஆன் பண்றீங்களா?
ஒரு நிமிஷமா. ரிவ்யூ போயிடுச்சு.
audible sir?
மேம் கேக்குதா?
கேக்குது சார், கேக்குது
பட் கேமரா ஆன் ஆக மாட்டேங்குது.
சார் நான் கேள்வி கேட்டுறேன் சார்.
கேட்டுருங்க, ப்ளீஸ் கேட்டுருங்கம்மா.
ஃபர்ஸ்ட் ஆஃப் ஆல் நான் ஃபர்ஸ்ட் எங்க லா காலேஜ் சார்பா ரொம்ப பாராட்டுகளையோ நன்றிகளையோ தெரிவிச்சுக்கிறேன் நீங்க வந்து பேசினதுக்கு. எனக்கு 5 issues அட்ரஸ்.
Introduce.
I am Anantha Krishnan from Maritime Law Department. So 5 issues எனக்கு மெயினா உங்ககிட்ட கேட்கணும் சார். So first issue வந்து மேன் அனிமல் கான்ஃப்ளிக்ட். இன்னைக்கு வந்து தமிழ்நாட்டுல வந்து எல்லா இடத்துலயுமே மேன் அனிமல் கான்ஃப்ளிக்ட் வந்து அதிகமாயிட்டே வருது.
எஸ்,
நியூஸ்ல வந்து எவ்ரிடே ரிப்போர்ட் ஆகுது. அல்டிமேட்டா ஹியூமன்ஸ் ஆர் என்க்ரோச்சிங் இன்டு அனிமல் ஹேபிட்டட்ஸ். அதுதான் மெயின் இஷ்யூ. ஆனா இதுக்கு ஒரு லெஜிஸ்லேஷனே இல்ல. அல்டிமேட்டா என்ன பண்றாங்கன்னா அனிமல்ஸ வரக்கூடாதுன்னு சொல்லிட்டு பட்டாசு வெடிச்சு அதை வந்து துரத்தி விடுறதுலயே இருக்காங்க. ஹியூமன்ஸ் வந்து எக்ஸ்பேண்ட் பண்ணிட்டே போறாங்க அவங்களோட ஏரியாவை. சோ இத வந்து காம்பேட் பண்றதுக்கு என்ன மாதிரி எஃபர்ட்ஸ் எடுக்கலாம்? இது ஃபர்ஸ்ட் கேள்வி. சோ அடுத்தது வந்து டிஸ்சார்ஜ் ஆஃப் எஃப்ளூயன்ஸ் இன்டு தி ரிவர்ஸ். இப்போ நமக்கு வர காவேரி வாட்டரே பாத்தீங்கன்னா பெங்களூர்ல இருந்து சூயேஜ் கலந்து தான் வருது. இன்னைக்கு பாத்தீங்கன்னா காவேரியோட தமிழ்நாடுக்குள்ள என்ட்ரா ஆகிற இடத்துல வந்து நிறைய வந்து அதுல இருக்கு கண்டென்ட் டாக்ஸிட்டி வந்து நிறைய இருக்கு அப்படின்னு ரிசர்ச் கண்டுபிடிச்சிருக்காங்க. சோ தமிழ்நாட்டுல இருக்க எல்லா ரிவர்ஸ்லயுமே பொல்யூட்டிங் பார்ட்டிகல்ஸ் வந்து நிறைய லெவல்ஸ்ல இருக்கு, கேன்சரே வரும்ன்ற அளவுக்கு ரிவர்ஸ் வந்து பொல்யூட் ஆயிருக்கு. ஸோ இவ்வளோ ரிஸ்கான ஒரு டிஸ்சார்ஜ் ஆஃப் எஃப்ளூயன்ஸ் இன்டு த ரிவர்ஸ் வந்து நடந்துட்டு இருக்கு. இதுக்கு என்ன எஃபர்ட்ஸ் எடுக்கலாம்? இல்ல கவர்மெண்ட் சைட்ல இருந்து வாட்டர் பாடிஸை ப்ரொடெக்ட் பண்றதுக்கு என்ன எஃபர்ட்ஸ் எடுக்கணும்? இது செகண்ட் கேள்வி. ஸோ
நீங்க பேசுங்க.
நான் பேசுறேன். ஸோ இன்னொரு முக்கியமான இஷ்யூ வந்து ஆஸ் அ ஸ்டூடெண்ட் ஆஃப் மேரிடைம் லா நாங்க முகத்வாரம் பத்தி படிச்சிருக்கோம் சார். முகத்வாரம் ஆர் எஸ்டுரிஸ். ஸோ இது பாத்தீங்கன்னா ஒரு ரிவர் வந்து சீக்குள்ள சங்கமிக்கிற இடம் வந்து முகத்வாரம் ஆர் எஸ்டுரிஸ்ன்றோம். இதுலதான் வந்து ஆல்மோஸ்ட் 80% ஆஃப் ஆக்சிஜன் வந்து ப்ரொடியூஸ் ஆகுதுன்னு சயின்டிபிக்கா ப்ரூவ் ஆயிருக்கு. ஸோ இந்த மாதிரி ஒரு எக்கலாஜிக்கலி சென்சிட்டிவ் ஏரியாஸ்ல don't you think that legislation is important to protect these estuaries or முகத்வாரத்தை ப்ரொடெக்ட் பண்றதுக்காகவே ஸ்பெசிஃபிக்கா ஒரு லெஜிஸ்லேஷன் இருக்கணுமா வேணாமா? ஏன்னா இவ்வளோ ஒரு சிக்னிஃபிகண்டான ஏரியா அது, ஆனா அதுவும் வந்து பொல்யூட் ஆகப்படுது. அதை வந்து கமர்ஷியல் எக்ஸ்பிளாய்டேஷனா டூரிசம் டெவலப் பண்ற மாதிரி எடுத்துட்டு போறாங்க. ஸோ அதையும் வந்து ப்ரிவென்ட் பண்ணி ஆகணும். ஸோ என்டையர் மெரைன் என்வாயர்மெண்ட் இஸ் அண்டர் த்ரெட். நீங்க ஸ்பெசிஃபிக்கா நீங்க சேலம்ல ஒர்க் பண்றீங்க, பட் ஆனா கோஸ்டல் ஏரியாஸ்ல எல்லாம் போய் பாத்தீங்கன்னா மெரைன் என்வாயர்மெண்ட் எவ்வளவு அஃபெக்ட் ஆகப்படுதுன்னு நான் சொல்லவே வேணாம். அந்த கடலோட குவாலிட்டியை பார்த்தாலே தெரியுது. மை ஃபைனல் கொஸ்டின் on your project of taking economy and environment simultaneously, இத வந்து நீங்க ஏன் வந்து பிராக்டிகலா எல்லா இடத்துலயுமே பண்ணாம இருக்கீங்க? லைக் that is the most sustainable.
நான் வந்துறேன். Okay, fine. I understand your question.
இதான் ஃபைனல் கொஸ்டின். So that is the most sustainable way we can develop. So எல்லாருக்குமே எக்கானமி முக்கியம், என்வாயர்மெண்ட்டும் முக்கியம், ரெண்டுமே முக்கியம். ஸோ சஸ்டைனபிள் டெவலப்மெண்ட்டுக்கு நீங்க அல்டிமேட்டா ஒரு எஃபர்ட்ஸ் எடுக்கலாமேன்றது தான் என்னோட ஹம்பிள் சப்மிஷன். தேங்க்யூ.
ஓகே ஃபைன். ஸோ பாஸ், மேன் அனிமல் கான்ஃப்ளிக்ட் வந்து நான் திரும்ப சொல்றேன், திருப்பி அங்கதான் வந்து நிற்க போகுது. மேன் அனிமல் கான்ஃப்ளிக்ட் சொன்னாவே சார் வந்து ஜக்கியோட வயலேஷன்ஸ், ஈஷா ஃபவுண்டேஷனோட வயலேஷன்ஸ் வந்து ரொம்ப கிளியரா வந்து புட்டு வைக்கிற மாதிரி ஓப்பன் பண்ணிட்டார் பாக்ஸை. த திங் இஸ், legislation is already, I believe, enough legislation are there in our country, but with several bottlenecks la irukanga inge irukku. It will be very good if law, if at all law as written in the IPC, CRPC அப்படியே இல்ல தமிழ்நாடு பொல்யூஷன் போர்டு இல்ல டிடி மைன்ஸ் இந்த டிபார்ட்மெண்ட்ஸ் அதோட தன்னோட கடமையை செஞ்சாவே போதும். we will have an ideal world around ourselves. But unfortunately, we citizens do not seek answers. We citizens do not question the authorities regularly. Or there is, just imagine, number population 140 crore irukna, 1% of the 1% population kudo inga litigants ah illa, petitioners ah illa, RTA activists ah illa. I'm talking of 1% of 1% of the population. If you come to that figure, then around 300 people from Salem itself should be seeking questions, answers from the government every day. So man-animal conflict comes from mining, illegal mining, forest areas undermine ஆகிட்டுனால, degradation of forest landsனால, extreme pressure, water pressure இருக்கனால animals have no other go but to come out. So in the preserves, in the reserve areas, the management of the forests have to be really questioned. We'll have to question again. சுத்தி உங்க justice system கே வந்துருது. Discharge of sewage waters நான் முதல்ல மென்ஷன் பண்ணிட்டேன். Kaveri is very highly polluted, like every other river it is highly polluted. We need to be very active locally. We need to ensure if Bhavani leather tanneries, dyeing industries, if they are polluting water, we need to ensure that they are filed, the cases are filed under attempt of murder. அந்த அளவுக்கு லால ஒரு இடம் இருக்கு, பட் இம்ப்ளிமெண்டேஷன்ல தயங்குறோம். இப்போ இந்த ஃபீக்கல் மேட்டர் போட்டாங்க வேங்கவயல் டேங்க்ல, அந்த என்டையர் கம்யூனிட்டி வாஸ் பாய்சன்ட். Till the person has not been arrested, the person who has perpetrated that crime, samples, DNA samples கையில இருக்கு, shit police கையில வச்சிருக்கு, DNA profiling பண்ணி ஈஸியா பிடிக்கலாம். But the will to get to the root of several issues is ஒரு பெரிய mental block நம்மளுக்கு நிக்குது. அந்த mental blockல இருந்து we have to come out. Even speaking about these things make people uncomfortable. Once you speak about this itself, நம்ம சொசைட்டில ரொம்ப uncomfortable ஃபீல் பண்ண ஆரம்பிச்சிடும். இந்த எஸ்யூரி பத்தி கண்டிப்பா the law that apply to poisoning of a river here, இல்ல encroachment, இல்ல land grabbing, which affects the water catchment area, which affects the water holding area, it is going to be the same. And economy and environment ஏன் நீங்க இது பண்ண மாட்டேங்கிறீங்கன்னா, சார் பாக்கமட்ட பிளேட் நான் தான் இன்ட்ரோடியூஸ் பண்ணேன். பாக்கமட்ட பிளேட் இன்னைக்கு தெருவுல வித்துட்டு இருக்கு. ஒரு தேங்க்ஸ் சொல்லுங்க எனக்கு. ஏன்னா அது 98ல நான் இன்ட்ரோடியூஸ் பண்ணேன். நான் இப்போ பேம்பு ஃபார்மரா இருக்கேன். பேம்பு க்ரோ பண்ணிட்டு இருக்கேன். I've been constantly working on this in continuity.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Sir, sorry for the interruption, sir. Since there is another program, we are falling behind time. So we kindly thank you for your session.
Close it. Thank you, ma. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Having heard our speakers, now I would like to invite Mr. Abhishek Castro, one of our alumni, to share a few words about how students can play a role in mitigating climate change. Kindly take the stage, Mr. What is reading?
So I sincerely thank the management for giving me this wonderful opportunity to take some kind of a contribution. Not I've done nothing. So some contributions I've done to do this international conference pampering success. First of all, I must tell one thing to everybody. When you want to contribute something to the climate change, environment, the global community, you must want to come out of the ideological mindset, whatever you belong to. You must be broad thinker, first of all. You must be out of caste, religion, creed, etc., discriminations, differences, whatever it might be. The regional discrimination, everything. You have to be out of box thinker. You have to be a rational thinker. You must be a great reformer. The kind of a mindset you must have, first of all. You must be a out of box thinker, broad thinker, rational thinker. You must have a connect with the nature. You must think in the scientific, progressive kind of a mindset. And then you need to be a kind of a person who is ready to work for the world. You should not confine yourself into any identity. That is very, very important, first of all. To be in this session, at the same time to take lead on the message, what the session is coming to give. So when you have that kind of a broad mindset only, you'll be able to contribute to the world, first of all. So we are all the warriors of the universe. First, remember this. So how this idea of this conference came, first of all, I want to brief you all. October 27, 2022, 4 months back, United Nations has released its United Nations Environment Report. It was another name of the report is United Nations Gap Report. The United Nations General Secretary Antonio Guterres has immediately passed a circular to the global United Nations organizations and its branches. He was telling the world is heading towards a catastrophe, a very worst catastrophe, and urgent action is needed. If that urgent action is not taken, the world will get destroyed. This was the exact word he used in this circular. First, listen what I'm coming to say. The real initiative why we took this conference. So when he said the world is heading towards a catastrophe, we need an urgent action. Immediately, I taken that report and I shared with our registrar sir and with Harita Devi madam. And I requested them to organize some international initiative for climate change and for globalization and then the global warming and etc. in the international perspective. So I must thank madam and the university, the management for taking immediate action and giving me the opportunity to bring the speakers and make some arrangements. So when I was a school kid, I want to explain you how I got interested into this environment, climate change, global warming, and then etc. issues, the environmental degradation and all the exploitations, what's happening around us. First of all, you remember one thing: what you eat is poison, what you hear is poison, what the news you hear is poison, fake. The relationships today is fake, and then the path you walk is fake. The things you hear is fake. The things you see is fake. Everything is fake in this world. Whatever you intake is fake. What you breathe is fake. Am I right or wrong? What you breathe is fake. Everything is fake. Everything is exploited. Everything is virus. Everything is contaminated. So first of all, we have to accept this. Whatever I'm living is fake, contaminated, exploited. I'm living in a shit. First, you have to understand this. You are in this world like this. Your world is like this. The surrounding, the environment around you is like this. Then you have to come. Why we took this initiative? How I got this idea and I contributed. When I was in school days, we had a close connect with Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. First of all, I want to pay my tributes to former President of India, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam and Actor Vivek in this initiative. We want to give a clap to them, not to me. Because when we had a close connect with Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam in my school days, and through him I was introduced to Dr. Vivek when I was a small kid. When I was a 16-year-old in those days, 2000, I think it's around 2013. So that time Dr. Kalam advised Dr. Vivek to initiate the Green Kalam initiative to plant 30 crore trees across the state of Tamil Nadu. So that time I had a good connect with Dr. Kalam through my school principal. And Dr. Kalam used to tell us, don't say God, don't say Almighty. Dr. Kalam used to say power of universe. He used the term power of universe. He won't say God or Almighty. Then I asked Dr. Kalam one day in Ramakrishna Mission. I remember that moment in Chennai. He told, why are you telling power of universe? I say God, I say Almighty. Why are you telling power of universe? That time Kalam replied immediately, well, you have to be a broad thinker when you want to do something to the world, and he told me. So he coined the term power of universe. You can see Kalam's words and sayings. Everywhere he used the word power of universe. That grasping I had from him. And the power of universe terms, always I used to think in a deep perspective. That time only I started to think in this perspective that we should not have any kind of a religious caste or whatever kind of identity this world is giving to us. Because we are here to work for the world. So we have to think in the global perspective, the creativity, imagination, our broad kind of mindset, everything for us, what is given to us should be given to the world, not to any community or not to any religion, not to any caste or not to any ideology. So when you have this mindset, this international conference will be possible for sure. Not only for me, not only for the management, for everybody. So first of all, Dr. Kalam is the leader of this international conference, I could say. Dr. Vivek is the leader of this international conference, I could say. So when we worked in the Green Kalam mission, that time many interactions we used to have with Dr. Vivek and Dr. Kalam. So both of their mindset was broad. They did not think about the India alone. They think about the world, the global community. So that base only helped me to think in this perspective and to give such ideas. First of all, I want to tell you this because the broad mindset is very, very, very important. And what are things as the topic given to me? What are the way you can contribute? So I told everything is poison, everything is fake, everything is contaminated, everything is exploited. And I told you, you need to be a broad thinker, you need to be thinking in a universal perspective because you're not a person belong to this Tamil Nadu or Chennai or Madurai or whatever the region you belong to. Because I observe in this world one thing. Every region, every nation, every countries, multi-nations, everywhere everything is differing. Culture is differing, language is differing, way of dressing is differing, caste is differing, language is differing, ethnicity is differing, tradition is differing, leaders are differing, political decisions are differing, economic policies are differing. Everything is differing to each and every zones. But universal idea is one and oneness. First understand this. The universe is one. The soul in me is soul in you. First understand this. The soul in me is soul in you. The soul in me is soul in animal. Now I feel that animals are not in the jungles. Animals are in the cities. In the human form. Animals are not in the jungles. Demons and the monsters, demons and the paranormal ghosts or etc. Not in the graveyard. It is in the cities. This is what I observe. This is what I see the world. We need to reform a lot. We need to take positive vibes, positive substances within us. And we need to reflect it. That will be possible only through the universal kind of thinking. Universal kind of thinking. This is the basic kind of a first mindset you need to have. Then I'll tell you the ideas what I am coming to convey. First, tree plantation is very, very important. Good food habits is very, very important. Kindly, if you have any bad habits, kindly renounce it. Reform, change, come to the right path. It's my humble request and it's my caution to everybody. And you need to focus on positive things. And organic farming is very important. Organic food culture is very, very important. And then you need to work for the world. That is very, very important. And don't see any discrimination among any human being. It may be caste, religion, race, color, culture, creed, caste, or whatever it might be, language, or whatever it might be. Please see human as human. What soul is in me? What soul is in you? What soul is in me? What soul is in animal? Animal has no sixth sense, but I have sixth sense. That's the only difference. So in this context, when you start thinking, everything is possible. So organic kind of a food culture, organic farming, we need to focus on farming. We need to save the water. We need to save the environment. And then we need to plant more trees, sapling plantation. We need to take care of our environment. In the perspective, you need to approach. First of all, kindly please travel, everybody. It's my humble request. I think 8 minutes over, another 7 minutes I have, 15 minutes is given. I hope the speech is good, so I can continue for another 5 minutes. So first of all, I would say that everybody must travel. Everybody must travel. 5 minutes, 7 minutes is there. So everybody kindly travel. Please don't limit yourself, because I always love to travel. Travel gives me a lot of knowledge. Travel gives me a lot of creativity. Travel gives me a lot of ideas. Travel gives me a lot of innovative kind of thinking. Travel gives me creativity. Travel gives me imagination. So everybody kindly travel. Don't restrict yourself. Every time when you're free, please go for some tour. Go to Manali, go to the Nunkan corners of India, go across the world to different countries, go for a tour plans, go for a travel plans, learn the different cultures, learn the different kind of setups in the world and in the different Nunkan corners of the society. So I always travel. I travel across India, I travel across world. Whenever I have time, I'll go out of station. Everybody knows that very well. Even my professors, my mentors, and my colleagues, everybody knows. Whenever I have a small time, whenever I have a vacation, I used to travel. I used to go somewhere. I'll go for an European tour. I can go for an American tour. I'll go for Bali, Indonesia, Singapore, Malaysia. Wherever, I'll put a travel plan, I'll move. I'll go there, I'll learn the culture, I'll come back. So that's the kind of a rejuvenation, a resurrection. It's a resurrection for the soul. So first of all, the travel is very important. For a change maker, travel is very important. For an environmental activist, for a climate change maker, travel is very, very important. Kindly travel to many places, explore, enjoy the life first of all. So one thing you all must remember, my dear friends, this body is perishable. This body is perishable. But the soul is indestructible, eternal, and then it is very strong. The soul, when you work for the soul, you will become a great soul. That's the secret of the human life. The soul is only very, very important, not the body. First, remember this. Whatever the adorable things which you wear, whatever the way costly you project yourself, whatever the way you work for the external body, it's no other matters. When you death, it will be cremated. When you death, it will be perished. But when you work for the soul, you will become a great human being. This is what we learned from Dr. Kalam. He used to say, work for the soul, and then yes, till you are alive, body is important.
Body is important. Body becomes sick, soul is nothing.
Yeah, I'm coming to the next point on this matter, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am, for the what is the remembrance. So I'm coming to the body matter. Take care of your health. Next point. So when the soul wants to function, it needs a body, because without soul you cannot function. Without body you cannot function. The soul cannot function. So use soul. So you have to take care of your health. Health is very, very important, because when you want to contribute something to the environment, to the climate change, health is very, very important. So I very simply coined what are the essential things you have to do, important areas you have to work, and what are the, first of all, a mentality I told, because without this mentality, nothing is possible. Wherever, even judiciary, bureaucracy, executive, public life, social life, wherever you go, without this mentality, it is not possible. So with these words, I could say another last point. Education only can transform our life. So with all these kind of a collective kind of inputs inbuilt, and then all this kind of a collective kind of build construction within yourself, education is also needed. So you all are in the right gate, you all are in the right track. So kindly utilize it in a right way and do something to the society. You all know very well, I told very simply, everything is fake, everything is poison, everything is contaminated, everything is exploited. Wherever, whichever the place you turn, everything is fake, everything is exploited, contaminated, and everything is a shit you're living. So kindly realize this, do something to change it. This is my humble request to everybody. So with these words, I thank, and in this session, I want to thank everybody, my mentors, Professor Dr. Kumudaratna ma'am, Dr. Harita Devi ma'am, and then Professor Dr. Rajit sir, Registrar of the Tamil Nadu Dr.Ambedkar Law University, Professor Dr. Colonel Santosh Kumar sir, Vice Chancellor of the Tamil Nadu Dr.Ambedkar Law University, and everybody, entire family of TNDALU. I must thank my colleagues and my UG colleagues, and then professors and friends and everybody. So kindly have this kind of a mindset and come wherever you want to go. For sure, success will be yours. This is my, what to say, it's not like a lost Nostradamus prediction. This is the connect of nature. This is the mantra of nature. This is the mantra of science. This is the mantra of the rational thinking. So this kind of things is very, very important. So first of all, come out of all your clutches, the caste, religion, creed, and etc., etc. So very simple mantra, I'll tell you: rational thinking, science-based progressive thinking, positive thinking, forward mindset, and you must have such a kind of a humanitarian kind of a mindset. This 5 is the very core important value to live as a human being with a 6th sense. This is the message I want to give. So once again, I thank everybody, and thanks for the great opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Castro. Now that we have reached the end of the session, I would like to invite Aarti Ratna ma'am, Assistant Professor TNDALU, to kindly deliver the vote of thanks.
A very good afternoon to one and all present here. It's my privilege to propose the vote of thanks for the symposium. First of all, I deliver my vote of thanks for Vice Chancellor, who is a constant support for us, for all our faculties and students, to conduct many, many programs in the university. The moment we approached Sir, he used to accept and agree for welfare of the students. Sir agrees to all the programs. So first, I thank Professor Dr. N.S. Santosh Kumar Sir, our Vice Chancellor of Tamil Nadu Dr.Ambedkar Law University, for giving us the opportunity to conduct this program. I thank our Registrar, Dr. Adv.Abraham Sir, for his constant support. And I thank Dean Sir, Professor Dr. V. Balaji Sir, HOD Maritime Law, and the conveners, Dr. Kumudaratna Ma'am, PG Director, Dr. Harita Devi Ma'am, Research Director, and Dr. Shakti Vail Sir, being a convener for this program. I thank everyone for organizing this program a grand success. I thank all the directors of UG, organizing secretaries, Ms. Divya, Deepa Lakshmi Ma'am, Naveen Sir, and Archie Stanley Sir, and student coordinators, Jayapriya, Johnson, Alexa Abraham, Preeta, and Sasi for their support. They are working tirelessly for past few days, and they supported us a lot in conducting this program, both in virtual as well as in the offline mode. I thank all the organizing committee members, and I thank the speakers who joined us today, Dr. Ingrid and Dr. Lori Elizabeth, who elaborated about the difficulties faced in the coastlines, as well as the need of shifting from the shifting to paper for the economical environmental benefit of the country. So they expanded so well in all the perspective. And I would like to thank our own alumni, Abhishek Castro. He doesn't need any introduction, but it is our honor and privilege to say a few words about Castro. Today, he elaborated very nicely about the importance of concentrating on environmental issues. Being a citizen, every individual has their own responsibility. So through this, we can understand that Castro concentrates more on society-based structure also. And adding feathers to his cap, he's a school topper, and you all know how he excelled in our college. And he is an international, he is a certified international blockchain advisor, and he is an anchor at the programs of Doordarshan. He received Election Commission of India Best Speaker, received India's Best Youth Parliamentarian in the year 2019. He received India's Best Law Student of the year 2020, honored by Honorable Justice Kurian Joseph, former Judge of the Supreme Court of India, and he is a motivational speaker at international forums. He has organized and addressed and took part in 100 plus national and international events in law and extracurricular and as well as in fine arts. He has received several awards, national and international level for legal researching, academic contributions, debating, oratorical, public speaking, extracurricular activities, and other literary events, done lot of legal publications in national and international level. And he has received TNDALU Best Speaker Award consecutively for 5 years, that is 2015 to 2020, in various oratorical and debate events conducted by our university. And he has received TNDALU University Star of the Year Award in the year 2017 and 18. He is a multifaceted in extracurricular activities, fine arts, theatre arts, received accolades and credentials and honors for the same national, international, and determined to practice all areas of law across India. Apart from this, he travels a lot, he explores different cultures, he takes a lot of positive informations, positive things across the globe, and he is one best student as it's been awarded also. Just the reason behind informing, telling you all this is, he is an alumni, not passed out so many years back. Just 2.5 years back, he's passed out from UG, and some 6 to 8 months back, that is the previous academic year from PG. So hope he is a good inspiration for all of us, not only for the students. At times he is an inspiration like new faculties like me. So he has done a lot and he has contributed a lot for our university. You can see him anywhere when he was in this college, everywhere, not only the academic activities. He used to concentrate on many cultural activities as well as in all the programs. We can see him. He can take over the stage in a moment and he can deliver lectures for us together, even about the technologies, the latest news, and so on. So I thank Castro for spending his time today with us, and I thank all the supporting staffs as well as the electricians and technical staff of today. And I thank, the last but not the least, I thank all the student participants of LLM, environmental law, international law, maritime law, and business law for joining us today and making this event a grand success. Thank you, Varna. Okay.